calling our February 16th, 2021 board meeting to order. Mr. Treasurer, please call the roll.
President Adair,
Present.
Ms. Beckerly,
Present.
Mr. Brown,
I'm here.
Mr. Cole, Dr. Pierce, Mr. Ragland,
Here.
Vice President Reyes.
Here.
You have a quorum, Madam President.
Thank you so much. We do anticipate both Board Member Cole and Dr. Pierce joining us shortly. We were going to have a student do the Pledge of Allegiance, but they are not here right now. And so I will have the honor of doing the Pledge of Allegiance this evening. So if everyone would please put your hand on your heart or stand, however you'd like to do it. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. Board members, you have the agenda before you. This evening, we have some board recognitions. We have no public comment. We have a report from our superintendent, as well as our treasurer. And we, of course, have our consent agenda. We will end the evening with an executive session. I'm sorry, before that, board announcements, then an executive session, and then we will adjourn. Are there any additions or comments about the agenda? Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Please call the roll.
President Adair,
Yes.
Ms. Beckerly,
Yes.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Mr. Ragland,
Yes.
Vice President Reyes.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you. We will now move into board recognition, and I will turn it over to Vice President Reyes for a resolution. Before I do, I just want to say that, sometimes, it is so hard when we lose people in our community, and not just Columbus community, but individuals that have touched the lives of so many students. And we don't often do these resolutions, so that it's very special when we do. And just to the whole Weiler family, know that we are thinking about you and, sending our love and prayers. So I'll turn it over to Vice President Reyes, who has the formal resolution.
Thank you, President Adair. As you stated, the Columbus community has lost a champion today. Missy was very thoughtful, humble, and passionate, and always extremely kind. She was a staunch supporter of public education and had a keen understanding of its importance to democracy and social justice. And she leaves a large void as our world needs more Bob and Missy Weilers. So I thank you, and I'm honored to present this resolution to commemorate and recognize the life and contributions of Mrs. Lila Missy Weiler. Whereas Mrs. Weiler's legacy reflects a lifetime of compassion and support within and beyond Columbus, Ohio. Along with her husband, Robert, and their family, the Weilers have enhanced Columbus City Schools' mission while generously supporting administrators, staff, and students. And whereas Mrs. Weiler is in partnership with her husband, created and developed I Know I Can as the only college access program in Columbus and one of the largest and most successful in the nation, providing a foundation of support to help hardworking Columbus City School students achieve their college and career dreams since 1988. And whereas Mrs. Weiler provided more than 4 decades of tutoring services, school supplies, and critical social and emotional resources for students and families at numerous school district-wide. And whereas the Weiler family has championed innovative ideas and project-based learning to create the Dream Grant to support teachers, scholarly and pragmatic endeavors with the district and beyond. And whereas the Weiler family invested in our youth by funding the Dr. James L. Moore III Scholars Program for transfer students, room, board, and books, and the College Weiler Scholars Program, which provides full undergraduate scholarships for Black males committed to being educators. And whereas the Weilers family of the Columbus City Schools and their dedication to helping students, families, and teachers in the Columbus City Schools to ensure they would never want for anything is a testament to their commitment. And now, therefore, be it resolved that the Columbus Board of Education on the 16th day of February 2021 adopt this resolution to honor and commemorate Mrs. Layla Missy Weiler for her exemplary lifetime accomplishments and commitment to empowering the youth, teachers, and staff of Columbus City Schools.
I'd be honored to second.
Thank you. Any comments?
I think Ramona said it. We need more people like Bob and Missy in this community.
Thank you, Board Member Brown. Go ahead and call the roll, please.
Ms. Beckerly,
Yes.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Mr. Cole,
Absolutely, yes.
Mr. Ragland,
Yes.
Vice President Reyes,
Yes,
President Adair.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you so much. And we will obviously get that to the Weiler family. And again, just thanking them for all that they've done for our school and remembering Missy in this time and the family. So, all right, we will go ahead and move forward in our agenda. We are in item 4 and we have no public comment this evening. So that makes it a very short item. And we will move into item 5, which is the superintendent's report. So I will turn it over to you, Dr. Dixon. Good evening.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you, Board President Adair. I have 2 topics I want to report on tonight. First, you're here from Deputy Superintendent Dr. John Stanford with an update on our transition to blended learning model. As you know, despite the winter weather of late, that has caused us to cancel classes each of the past 3 Tuesdays. We're in a 3rd week of blended learning for many students across the district. Our students in pre-K through 3rd grade, our students with complex needs in grades pre-K through 12, and our career and technical education students at Columbus Downtown High School and the Fort Hays Career Center are in week 3 after starting back on February 1st. Our 4th and 5th graders are in their 2nd week after returning to their classrooms on February 8th. In total, we have nearly 24,000 students who are currently in the blended learning model, which represents more than half of our students district-wide. Of course, we want to be able to bring in more students to blended learning. It was our intention to phase in our pre-K through 5 students and then monitor our transportation capacity and our classroom staffing coverage before determining the next group of students to bring back. As a result of absences and leaves, we have had to transition 4 schools back to remote learning: East Haven Elementary, Ennis Elementary, Ohio Avenue Elementary, and most recently, Indianola Informal. Our 4th and 5th grade classrooms at Columbus Afrocentric are also learning remotely, along with a handful of pre-K classrooms due to a lack of staff coverage. We continue to evaluate our staffing levels and hope to transition these students to blended learning as soon as it is feasible to do so. We are also working on plans to return our students in grades 6 through 12 back to their classrooms. We expect to have more details that we can share in the coming weeks as we target March for a return of additional students. The Center for Disease Control and Prevention, or CDC, recently released guidelines for reopening schools that focus on 5 key COVID mitigation strategies, all of which we are currently implementing as part of our blended learning model. Wearing masks, social distancing, hand washing, cleaning facilities and improving ventilation, and contact tracing, isolation, and quarantine. The CDC's guidance shows that we are on the right track with our multi-layered health and safety protocols for blended learning. As a result of thorough planning and preparation, we have been able to put these protocols in place and ensure our mitigation strategies are implemented with fidelity before we phase in more students to their classrooms. So as if returning to blended learning wasn't a big enough challenge, add a heavy dose of winter weather to the mix, and the lift gets even heavier, but not impossible. I was fortunate to visit 20 different schools around the district in the last 2 weeks to see firsthand the transition to blended learning. The level of care and compassion our educators continue to demonstrate is indisputable. It is true that we meet students where they are. That's not just a catchphrase, but a commitment that is evident in all of our schools and classrooms. Thank you once again to our teachers, principals, and staff for all of their efforts in making a transition to in-person learning successful for our students. Also this month, we have been working with Columbus Public Health to get as many of our CCS teachers and staff as possible to receive the COVID-19 vaccine. We implemented a plan that prioritized educators and staff who were working in schools with in-person learning currently, as well as those who were driving buses and providing critical services to our students. Thanks in large part to our partners at Columbus Public Health, more than 4,000 of our teachers and staff have already received their first dose of the vaccine. Most of the second doses will start next week and run through mid-March. We expect that more than half of our total employees will be fully vaccinated. In order to allow flexibility for many CCS teachers and staff to receive their second dose of the vaccine, we have announced that all students will learn remotely Thursday and Friday, February 25th and 26th, and Monday and Tuesday, March 1st and 2nd. Recognizing that there are possible side effects associated with the administration of the second dose, this temporary move to remote learning will allow flexibility for staffing coverage and certainty for our families of students in blended learning. Even a slight increase in staff absences due to the second dose potential side effects could result in unplanned school and classroom closures, putting our families in a difficult position. So after we hear Dr. Stanford's update on our blended learning implementation, the academic services team will then present their plans for our 2021 summer programming. We know now more than ever that it is imperative that we offer a robust and engaging opportunities and experiences for our students this summer. We are planning an exciting summer experience. We were planning an exciting summer experience last year before the COVID pandemic changed those plans. We were still able to offer remote experiences last summer, but we were understandably thinking bigger this year. I will leave it to our academic team to tell you more about what we are excited to offer our students and their families this summer. Before I turn it over to Dr. Stanford, I want to provide a brief update about our graduation plans for the class of 2021. Yesterday, we announced the graduation ceremony dates, June 2nd through the 5th. We know that we will hold some form of in-person ceremonies, but we are still working out the details, including the format and location. This is the same case for our summer graduation ceremony, which will be held August 14th. We thought it was important to get the dates out to our students, families, and staff so that they could plan accordingly. We will have more updates as information becomes available. Now, I will turn it over to Dr. Stanford for an update on our blended learning implementation. Dr. Stanford?
Thank you, Madam Superintendent. And I'm going to share my screen so that we can receive the presentation. Good evening, Madam President, Madam Vice President, and members of the Board of Education. I am here with a couple of my colleagues from the Health Services and Operations team to provide an update on the district's reopening work. As the superintendent has already indicated, we are so very, very happy to have over 20,000 of our students back in the pre-K through 5 blended learning model with our CTE students, and also with our students with unique disabilities. It has been a long time coming. It will be almost a year next month since the district received the order from the governor to not have students in our schools any longer. So we are just excited to have our students back. As you know, the operations team continues to meet daily to discuss issues and to continue our planning for the next phases of our reopening. Tonight's presentation will focus on the following: the COVID-19 CDC and CCS guidelines, which Dr. Kate King will provide a high-level overview of how our mitigation strategies are aligned to the new CDC guidelines. Next, I will give a brief update on where we are with the CATS initiative with Ohio State University and the Educational Service Centers of Central Ohio. I will also give a brief overview of our current COVID-19 dashboard. I will then turn it over to Mr. Steve McElroy, our Executive Director for Business Operations and Transportation, to discuss our transportation capacity and the services that we are currently providing. And then Mr. DeFabo will conclude the presentation by talking about our substitute plan and how it's working right now. With that, I will turn it over to Dr. Kate King to talk about our alignment with the new CDC guidelines. Dr. King?
Thanks, Dr. Stanford. It's really wonderful to be here with you again today. As many of you know, February 11th, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention released new operational strategies for K-12 schools. And I was very pleased to see what their strategies are and how we're meeting them. Just a few things. I want to talk, first of all, about their mitigation strategies. Now, Dr. Dixon really talked about all of them already. Just want to talk a little bit more in detail. The CDC is very focused on, again, the low transmission of COVID-19 within schools, and is also looking to the strategies that keep that transmission low. So first of all, of course, is masks. Masks required and standard for all students and employees. We also look at that in terms of equity and diversity and individualized strategies. So we do have, again, a mechanism for individualized plans for students who cannot wear masks. The second strategy is keeping 6 feet apart. That social distancing is so critical. And again, Columbus City Schools is already doing that. My next picture is, of course, hand washing and respiratory etiquette. We have provided hand washing stations, hand sanitizer, instruction, and all of that to make sure our students are safe, cleaning operations, and then contact tracing. So contact tracing has been going on for many months by our expert school nurses in collaboration with Columbus Public Health. The next phase of the CDC operational strategies are phased mitigation and learning mode. So what the CDC has talked about is exactly what we're doing. Since we know that transmission is less in children of younger ages, the CDC talks about starting with elementary schools, and that is what we've done. So we're seeing our elementary school students come back. We also look at higher risk individuals. So making sure that higher risk individuals have individualized plans and operations so that they can learn in our schools. We also want to prioritize, and the CDC wants to prioritize, is in the middle picture there, in-person learning over other activities, such as extracurricular activities. This doesn't negate sports or other extracurricular activities, but the CDC and Columbus City Schools' goal, first and foremost, is the education of our students and return to in-person learning. And then, of course, providing virtual options for high-risk individuals. Next slide, please. The third part of the CDC operational strategies is additional prevention. These, of course, are things that are optional and yet are very important in providing, again, this prevention of transmission. And the first is vaccination. And as, again, Dr. Stanford talked about and Dr. Dixon, the Columbus Public Health has been instrumental in helping us get our staff, our employees, immunized against COVID-19. And we're looking forward to immunization of children maybe later in the summer, maybe earlier if my wishes come true. And then, of course, testing. So when we have individuals in our school system who are symptomatic or are exposed, again, our school nurses have conversation and also written materials to encourage them to seek their healthcare providers' advice on testing. Again, thank you for the opportunity to talk with you and to show you how Columbus City Schools and the CDC are continuing to work hand in hand together. Thank you, Dr. Stanford.
Thank you, Dr. King. As a part of this presentation, I'd like to give you now an update on the CATS initiative with The Ohio State University and the Educational Service Center of Central Ohio. As you know, CATS stands for COVID-19 Analytics and Targeted Surveillance System. And with this system that was presented to you at the last board meeting, we have created 2 data teams as a part of the infrastructure that is required to implement the CATS system. The first team is called a surveillance team, and this team is made up of 4 of our district administrators. And the team is responsible to monitor the data on a daily basis to identify anomalies in the data. Once they identified anomalies in the data, they will then turn over the data to the second data team, and that is the data review team. The data review team has 11 individuals who make up that team, made up of district administrators, along with Dr. Sarah Bodie from Nationwide Children's Hospital, Dr. Blue from our equity team to focus on equity as we look at the spread of COVID in the district and look at what strategies we want to implement to counteract the spread. And then an epidemiologist from the Columbus Public Health, and also data analysts and data experts from our accountability team. And so this data review team will look at the anomalies that the surveillance team has identified to see if the anomalies are really something actually going on with the data, or if the anomaly can be explained by normal practices that occur in a school district. These two data teams are very important because the data teams will utilize the established thresholds of the system in order to determine whether or not there are anomalies to be concerned about. The three thresholds that we have established as a part of the CAT system is threshold number 1, nurse visits for flu or COVID-like symptoms. And that threshold will be 5 nurse visits per 1,000 visits in the population. 1,000 of our population. Threshold number 2, student absences due to illnesses at 10%. And threshold number 3, student absences due to illness at 15%. All 3 threshold measures were developed by looking at thresholds of other school districts that are a part of the CAT system, but also looking at national threshold measures as well, provided to us by the CATS team at Ohio State University. In addition to the thresholds, we also will have a dashboard that will be established later on this week. The team is working with the CATS team to finalize any last minute details for making sure that the dashboard is ready to launch later on this week. And so hopefully we are hoping and we are on schedule right now to have the dashboard and to have the CATS system launched later on this week. Now I'd like to take a quick glance at our current CCS dashboard, just as a reminder to what we have currently on our website.
Dr.
Sorry
Stanford,
about
I'm
that.
going to go ahead and share my screen with the presentation.
Oh, okay, thank you. I thought I did something wrong.
Can you see that?
Yes.
It's kind of small.
Scott, I think what we're seeing is the presenter view, not the slideshow.
Dr. Stanford, I'm having trouble pulling up your PowerPoint, but I think the one you were using is not the revised version.
Okay. Did you have something different? Denise.
You can go ahead with that.
Okay. So what you see before you is the almost like a screenshot of our COVID-19 data dashboard. And it shows the current numbers that are on the dashboard as of today. I'm sorry, as of February 10th, 2021. And so it shows you the approximate number of CCS staff members, the approximate number of CCS students, but also it shows you the positive COVID-19 cases reported to the district and associated with in-person learning or activities. First and foremost, this represents the number of cases that have been reported to the district by our staff members and or students. It also does not represent that these 13 cases that you see reported as of February the 10th, 2021, that those 13 cases, the individuals contracted the virus on one of our school campuses. What this data represent is that these individuals contracted COVID-19 and reported that they have tested positive to the school district. It is important also to note that the data is specific to those COVID-19 positive cases that associated with in-person learning or activities, and with or activities would be like student athletics or riding on one of our school buses. So that, again, these are individuals that reported positive and they were involved in either in-person learning or with a school-related activity. And so just wanted to clarify what the numbers that are currently on our data dashboard represent.
If I have a question, Joe, you want me to ask them now or do you want me to hold off?
If you could just hold off until the end of the presentation, that'd be great. Thank you. Next, we have Mr. Steve McElroy, our Executive Director for Business and Operations and Transportation, to give us a quick update on where we are with transportation. Mr. McElroy.
Thank you, Dr. Stanford. Next. First of all, the Office of Transportation is honored and so very glad that we're back to transporting our students to school. To date, we have 596 active bus drivers. We have 74 drivers who are off on leave of absence or FFCRA. We have 77 active intervention aides and 3 off on leave. And lastly, our child care attendants, we have 11 active and 9 off on leave. Currently, we're running 531 bus routes, and we have 565 bus drivers. I'm sorry, 596 bus drivers, and we have 74 of our drivers off on leave. Some of the services that we're providing are, as mentioned earlier, we are transporting our pre-K through 5 grades on our cohorts A and cohort B. Also, we're transporting our students with disabilities, grades pre-K through 12 on cohort A, cohort B, and cohort D, which is 4 days per week. We're also transporting our Career Tech students to the Fort Hays Career Center and the Downtown High School in cohort A and B. We're also transporting our charter and non-public school students 5 days per week. We're also in the process of scheduling our ACT testing to transport our students to take the ACT test, and also scheduling to transport Columbus City School students to take the Ohio English Language Proficiency Assessment, better known as OELPA, and we're transporting students to athletic events. Additionally, I had some questions that were posed to me about our needs assessment. We are in the process of working collaboratively with our Office of Accountability and our IT department to send out a second needs assessment to our families to ask them if they wish to opt out of receiving yellow bus transportation. Additionally, there were some questions posed about some of the logistics and some of the laws relative to transportation. I want to briefly touch on them as well. First of all, one of the questions was, where does a requirement to bus all charter and non-public schools come from? And that is under the law 332701 of the Ohio Revised Code, which basically says Columbus City Schools is to provide transportation to public schools and charter non-public schools grades K through 8. Additionally, the ORC under 3327.015 gives the Board of Education the ability to change its transporting grades 9 through 12 if it does so by the beginning of the school year. Additionally, Board Policy 8600 gives transportation the permission to transport students K through 12, and those are students who live outside of a 2-mile radius of their school. Additionally, we were asked questions relevant to what happens to the schedule if we add middle school students or high school students. And we are currently, as mentioned previously, looking at our routing information to make decisions on how we can provide transportation for additional grade levels. Another question was, what has happened when we tried to work out solutions with charter and non-publics? And the answer is we have been working directly with Ohio Department of Education and many of the charter non-public schools based on the 2-tiered model that was introduced previously to try to work with them individually to try to help transport students to times that help their business model or bell times. Again, the Office of Transportation is working directly with Columbus City Schools and our charter non-public schools to provide transportation for students who are eligible, which is around 20,000 students. That completes my presentation.
Thank you, Mr. McElroy. Next, we have Mr. Michael DeFabo, who is our Executive Director for Human Resources, and he is going to give us an update on our substitute teachers. Mr. DeFabo.
Thank you, Dr. Stanford, and hello, board members. So I think it's been about a month since I was with you last, and I have a little bit of a scratchy voice tonight, so I apologize. Last time we talked, we were transitioning from one-off experience to long-term engagements this year as part of our focus on our substitute model as it relates to the pandemic and also just in general best practice. And that really meant minimizing the itinerant nature of the positions, allowing our subs to really become a part of our school culture and ensuring immediate coverage when needed, knowing that if someone is out, we need them to jump in quickly. We've been very intentional about how we assign subs this year, and we're working directly with our SEMS team, our Substitute Employee Management System team, and our building administrators, and that has sort of grown into our area superintendents as well, as we're all looking directly at how do we keep our schools in hybrid learning and how do we address issues that pop up. We're still looking at some minimum dedicated substitute teachers per building and growing on that more and more. And we're constantly monitoring staffing levels. We have 3 meetings a week where this is our main focus. We are very intentional about how we move forward with schools, and we're going to continue that work for as long as we need to continue that work, really, which will certainly be through the end of this year, if not further. So what have we learned over the past month now that schools have come back into hybrid? We have a total of 474 active substitute teacher employees. Of those, we have 107 assigned to buildings and at 104 buildings. These staff are assigned specific building. They work 5 days a week. They can cover daily or long-term absences. They support the building with any other needs, but the main focus is instructional needs that come up. That leaves about 367 what we would consider day substitutes. They're not assigned to a building, and this is single day, sporadic, or long-term absences that pop up. These subs, what we're seeing is we surveyed this pool of subs the week before we brought staff back because we wanted to make sure that they would be engaged. Of the respondents, about 70% said they would come back and support us in hybrid. And so we thought we were ready to go with these day subs. The fact is, not many of them are showing up. And so that first model, the substitutes assigned to a building, we went for the best practice, and I'm glad we went for the best practice because it's really working out best for us. So what we're doing is we're continuing to make that, to bring in more people, hire more people. You'll see on the board today, we have 13 more sub teachers coming in. We have 15 more sub teachers who are got offers, and we're working through their onboarding. And we have a little over 50 more sub teachers who are in hiring processes. Again, we're going to continue hiring and continue placing people. So anyone that's interested, please reach out to me or my team. We have our jobs website, but we want to grow this sub assigned to a building. It's working well now, and I imagine it's going to be a best practice post-pandemic. Thank you, Dr. Stanford.
Thank you, Mr. DeFabo. The last thing I'd like to share with the board and with the community tonight is, again, as we stated the last time, please visit our reopening website. It is ccsoh.us/reopening. And on that web page, you will find our education plans, latest news, learning and what's going on with COVID-19, videos on educational opportunities, and also videos on many of the mitigation practices that we have discussed today, technology information and how you can get a hold of our technology team to address technology needs, our Learning Extension Center information and how to connect with our Learning Extension Centers all across the district. And last but not least, meal service information that we are providing through our food services program. And with that, members of Madam President, Madam Vice President, and members of the Board of Education, and Dr. Dixon, that concludes the operations reopening update for this evening. And we are here to answer any questions that you may have.
Okay, thank you. We do have some questions, board members. If you have a question, we have board member Beckerly and then board member Ragland. Dr. Dixon, was there anything that you wanted to add before we start with questions?
No, we can go with the questions and then we can come back because we have another part of the presentation and then another update.
Okay, then to board member Beckerly.
All right, let's start with Mr. DeFabo. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, I just want to make sure he's there. Oh, there he is. Okay. That was a very high level, all sweetness and light presentation about the substitute plan. We currently have 4 buildings that are closed, at least 1 partial program, and assorted preschools. I want to know, telling me that there's 400 subs, there 107 are assigned to a building and 364 are available. I'm kind of suspicious about whether that's accurate, but even assuming that it was, it doesn't tell me anything about this crisis and how we're planning on solving it. It also saying, please apply is not really helping either. What are we doing to get people to apply? What is our campaign? What are we doing to tell the community? What are we doing to tell the mayor and the governor and everyone else that we have a crisis here and we need help? I mean, I can't, it's bordering on insulting, and I am sorry, I'm losing my patience here, my temper. Given what was just happened in the past 2 weeks with the subs and the crisis, that you didn't address anything that's relevant. And if we have 400 subs, it's 367 not enough? What's the shortfall? I needed to see a chart that said, this is how many we have, this is how many are willing to show up, this is how many are assigned to buildings, and this is how many we still need.
Absolutely. So I can definitely speak to that, and I apologize if you didn't get the information in that manner. So I want to talk about a few things. One is I think that you've heard me probably for the last year talk about the fact that we have a sub crisis here. I'm very open about that at FAC. We 100% should have way more substitute teachers in this school district. I take that very seriously. And we should have a pool of 1,000 substitute teachers for the amount of students that we have in our district and the amount of teachers.
That's an important fact.
100%, 100%. And again, I apologize if I'm not bringing enough gravity to the situation. So I'm definitely going to give you some gravity in how I am working on this every day.
Well, it's because unless I had that 1,000 number, 400 doesn't mean anything.
Sure. 100%. And I'm coming from a school district where we had a 90% fill rate and we had 1,000 subs, same size school district. So to get to a 90% fill rate, 1,000 subs. We had, on a good year, we have 400 plus subs here, and our fill rate has declined year over year from 70 to 60% over the last 3 years. That is real, and that was happening pre-pandemic. And so that is specifically why we came to FAC and then came to the board to make sure that, one, we were paying our subs the way that we needed to pay them, and two, we were incentivizing them to really be retained and focus on the work that we want to do every day. And that includes the giving our subs benefits. So there's that piece. I think the other piece is our subs right now, that 367 number, I touched on this, but let me be more specific. These subs, the vast majority of them are not showing up for work.
Right.
And I don't want you to think that I was trying to not portray that. Our preferred model 100% is an assigned building sub showing up every single day. What we've heard from our sub pool that is what we would consider our day subs is that they don't want to come back until they get vaccinated. And we have, we continue all those snow day robocall text messages, all that stuff that everyone gets. We're doing that exact same thing with the sub pool. In addition, we're having just regular conversations with these folks to find out what's going on. And we're hearing more and more and more that they are less interested in coming back until they are fully vaccinated.
And isn't also the problem, even absent COVID, we had a huge,
100%.
To some extent, and let me back up a little. This existed long before you ever joined us.
I've only been here a year, and it's been mostly pandemic.
It's existed, probably close to 10 years, certainly a solid 6 or 7, where there has been tragic losses of learning because of our sub shortage. And to some extent, this is the first time it's really getting any traction. And you know, because there are cases where teachers have been out for 3 months in some of our South Side buildings, and there's never been a sub at all. And kids have been divvied up, and instruction's been lost across the board. And if we were listening and paying attention, we know about it. And I'm remiss because when you shared the plan last fall, which was wonderful, to pay the subs more and assign the subs to building, I've wanted to see us do that when I was still teaching in 2018. I wanted to see us do that, but I knew in the back of my mind, this is a start, but this is nowhere near solving the problem. And to get a little bit higher level about this, because there's other things besides the sub problem that is the same way. I think we have to start a practice of naming it. Because if we don't name it, we can't fix it. And I didn't say that at the time, which I wanted to say this is a start, but it's nowhere near. And I didn't say, give me that chart that I'm asking for you now, because it is a start. It is starting to make progress, but it's nowhere near. And we need to start, and this is a true across everything, saying, yes, this is a start, but we still have this problem. And nobody think it's solved and go away. I mean, we did the same thing with restorative justice practices. We trained a handful of people. Now we go around saying we're a restorative justice district, and we're not restorative justice in one building. Sure, Ward will give you the charts that show you. Maybe one, maybe two. So this is a problem. And I guess my request is, going forward, when you present to us, give us the bottom line. This is where we are. This is the staggering gap. This is why this was always going to be a problem. Because I think that the answer then is, yes, this is awful. This is really, really awful. However, I believe it's still better for us to have opened our schools in hybrid, even with these horrible absences of subs, because we're still reaching kids we weren't reaching before. And by saying it and owning it, we have a sub shortage. That we started COVID with a sub shortage. It's only going to be worse. We may have buildings we can't keep open. That's the first step. So I think we have to start being more honest with each other that way going forward, because then also we say, well, then what's the plan? And maybe, you know, I don't know what the plan is. I don't know what the solution is, but maybe a campaign that we do in collaboration with the city councilman and the mayor, and say, apply to be a sub, we need you. I mean, I don't know, some public, you know, whatever things we need to do, but we need to elevate it first.
Right. Can I jump in, please, Carol, and just to add some more context? I think what Mike and the HR team have identified is accurate. But I want to make sure too that, as you have stated and as he has stated, you know, we have a concern with getting substitutes, but we have to make sure too that we are addressing making sure that our people are in classrooms too. We don't want to have to rely on our substitutes.
Yes.
You know, so that's important, that we don't rely on our substitutes. And so, you know, just want to make sure we frame that. And we are working on campaigns. Mike and his team, Mike has been here. We're talking about, you know, we're already looking at some potential people who want to help us with some campaign strategy, with literature. I'm working with the HR team tomorrow. They're doing some recruiting, some virtual recruiting at historically Black colleges and universities. Mm-hmm. So they have been working hard on a strategy. So, but you're right, you know, we can bring more data and more evidence publicly. But he has, I just don't want you or the public to think that HR has not been working hard on this issue. I thank you for recognizing that this is not something that's new to the organization. It's something that the organization has been facing for a while and we're working on. But we want to also highlight, we want outstanding teachers to come to teach in Columbus City Schools. it is a place where is a good place to work, and, you know, focus on that whole culture piece and getting people here. Along with addressing that if we have staff members that for whatever reason need to be off because of whatever need, that we have solid subs that can come in and assist. So I just wanted to highlight that, and we will bring some additional data. But I also wanted to speak to another thing that you said, Carol, that it is good that we bring kids back. And even though we don't have as many subs that we like, it is a good thing that our students are back and in front of their teachers, and in small groups where we can adhere to the COVID guidelines. We don't want to impact students in a way that they have no learning because we don't have a sub. And that's why we've had to move students back into a remote setting, because they will have a teacher. Because some of our substitutes, as Mike stated, feel more comfortable teaching in a virtual setting rather than coming in the building. So thank you for lifting that both, but I just wanted to jump in because they've been doing a great job. Thank you. We were still highlighting, we bring more data. Mike loves it. You gave him a cue. He loves data and spreadsheets, and he would definitely bring more data moving forward.
Well, and I think as we, think back, it would have been better for us to have been straight with the community up front, saying, we realize we're going to have there's a potential sub shortage. We're going to deal with it as best we can. That's our reality right now, but we still think it's important to bring the kids back anyway. And then at least we're not battling this, why didn't you see it coming? Why was it managed? I can't believe this. There's that whole thing that if we had just owned it up front and said, we're going to do the best we can, we have, this is part of a long-term problem we need to address. I just think that we'd be saving ourselves some agita as well.
Well, thank you. And I don't want the perception that we in any way try to deceive our community or our families, right? So bring in additional data points. And as you stated, calling some of those particular areas out, doing that upfront, yes. But, the team, we've been, we make our decisions based on the data that we have at that time. And we did not for any reason foresee that some of the substitutes may not want to come into buildings. So when we were thinking about having 407 subs ready to go in, and then to later find out that some subs like, I'm not sure, I would rather stay in a virtual space. We did not anticipate that. So once that became known to us that more substitutes felt better until they were vaccinated, because remember, even our vaccination plan did not initially include substitutes. We added them in there along with student teachers and other partners. As we learned more, that's when we decided, okay, so what are some additional plans to make sure that we can still keep students in as much as possible, but then if we have to move some classrooms back to remote, what would that look like? So, but again, we want to be, and we have been transparent with the public. If we need to add additional data points, as you stated, we will welcome that. We will bring that information back. We will add that into our weekly, my weekly message to the community. Anything that we can do to add additional information to be even more transparent, we would definitely do that. But the other piece is too, I just want to remind people that, this is a space that we've never been in, right? So when we're thinking about this pandemic, and there is no script. So, we're using various, there's no playbook per se. So, we are reading materials, we're looking at best practices from other districts. Each of our chiefs are, they have their groups that they're working with, their thought partners across other districts. And we are putting what we believe is a good plan instructionally and a safety plan in place. And we know and understand that it is not perfect, but I want the public to know that, and you guys have been supportive, that we're putting what we believe a best plan forward for the students that we serve, even if it's right now just 25,000 students. But you look at, we're the largest district in the state, and we were able to get 25,000 students in a hybrid manner, even though we had some difficulties with substitutes. But for the most part, 96% of our staff members, teachers, have been at work. And they have been in. I think that should be applauded, even though, to your point, that we have some issues with substitutes. So thank you guys thank you for your continue to raise those tough questions and making sure that we're giving information out as clear as possible to our stakeholders, and we will continue to improve upon that.
Yeah, I did not mean to suggest misrepresenting or misleading. I guess what I was thinking is kind of just foreseeing it ahead of time and making, adjusting expectations maybe is a better way to say it.
Carol, if I can jump in on that real quick, I just wanted to add that we've been doing a lot of stress testing moving into hybrid and looking at what we thought would be happening. I think Dr. Dixon did say it very well. When you tell people we're coming back, people say, okay. And you tell people we're not kidding, and they say, okay. And then you tell people you have to be in the building on Monday. And everything changes. I mean, everything changes. I've never seen anything like it before, and I've been doing this work for a very long time.
Well, that's fair. Thank you for sharing that, because that's important.
Absolutely.
And that would be something that would take you by surprise.
Yeah, and it did. And I mean, I'm sort of a grizzled veteran when it comes to the staffing world. I fully believe in courageous transparency. I want us to be very clear about what our deficits are. I want us to be clear about what our successes are and all the milestones to get from point A to point B. I was just shocked that folks were not showing up and not engaged. And I don't think we could have gotten that until we really brought people back on site. And we saw this play out a little bit. So that's why, for me, it was very important to have different plans in place that we could jump to, because we always wanted to focus on continuity of education for students.
A quick question.
Okay, Carol, we're gonna go ahead and move forward if that's okay with you. We can come back. We just have other board members who are in the queue. So we are gonna move to Board Member Ragland next.
Thank you, Madam President. Dr. Dixon, as you present information regarding our substitutes, please present the same data regarding our teaching staff. I'd like the data broken down by school, if possible. What I'm looking for is attendance data, particularly at schools with high percentages of low socioeconomic status students, as well as schools with high percentages of students of color, and what the attendance looks like there versus the opposite. I do not believe that the subs or the lack of subs is the real problem. We should not be blaming people that do not have full-time jobs with Columbus City Schools for issues around school closing. And so if we have a problem with substitutes, then we have a problem with teacher attendance. And if we have had a problem with substitutes, then we have had a problem with teacher attendance. And so I want to see that data just as detailed as we would have the data presented for substitutes. Thank you. My question is to Mr. McElroy. Regarding transportation, I know that we have a needs assessment that's going out to our families. Can you please articulate what our strategy is around having parents reply to us that they are able to handle their own transportation for their students? What would that allow us to do if we have a critical mass of families that can handle their own transportation?
President Adair, Board Member Ragland, thank you for the question. So like you stated, we sent one needs assessment out already, just to give a little background. And that needs assessment, we had just over 600 CCS parents opt out of yellow bus transportation, and about 800 charter non-public school families also opt out of yellow bus transportation. So those families were basically put on pause in our system, so they were not routed for transportation. Moving forward with the next assessment, we'll basically do the same thing to give families another opportunity to decide if they wish for their students to have yellow bus transportation or not. And again, based on those numbers, those students will be, again, placed on pause, if you will, in our system and not be provided transportation. And then we will adjust our routes accordingly. We can't answer the question specifically on what it would do because it really depends on the students who actually opt out and which routes they're currently on, and how removing them may help us to adjust those routes.
Thank you for that, sir. Could it be said that in a spirit of cooperation, the more families that are able to transport their own students, the higher the likelihood that we may be able to bring back more of our students?
Oh, I'd like to put it this way, Mr. Ragland. Again, you understand that we're talking about transporting students from all across the city to multiple schools across the city. So, and please understand, currently the Office of Transportation routes students based on eligibility. So we route students in the system, again, based on board policy and eligibility, and we route accordingly. So it's safe to say that if we have students removed or paused, that will help us to adjust routing, but we have to see what the data looks like to determine the difference it will make in terms of providing services to additional grade levels.
Thank you for that, sir. And I want to commend you and your team for everything that you all have been doing since the beginning of this school year up to now. You all have done an outstanding job. I appreciate the attention that you've given to this particular issue. I understand that it's hard. I think that we should be talking more about a CDL program for our students for career tech, understanding that there's a driver shortage and that we may need to start breeding our own future drivers for this district, and then understanding what a CDL that leads to entrepreneurship and some of those other things. We might want to look into that, but Mr. McElroy, you've been awesome to work with, and I appreciate all the hard work from you and your team. That concludes my questions, Board President Adair. Thank you.
Thank you, Board Member Ragland. We will move to Board Member Brown. You're muted.
I thought I just fixed that. Yeah, I'll keep it brief. Since I want to go back and make sure I understand the problem that we're talking about, and some of it treads the same ground that both Carol Beckerly and James Ragland covered. But what I like to know, and have you figure out the best way to tell me that, is to what extent is the problem of teacher shortage a problem of, our teachers, our full-time teachers, not having the same attendance as they've had in the past? And to what extent is it that we can't get substitutes? If more of our teachers are there on the job, we don't have the same need. And if you can just, work out a way to identify where the problem really is, and then we can figure out better how to attack that problem. Thank you. Oh, by the way, I also commend everybody who's been working on all of these measures. The staff has done a great job, and in a very, very challenging setting. So thank you all.
Did you want to address any of that, Dr. Dixon, or?
Well, I think providing that data in a comprehensive report will be the best next step. So we will work on that and then provide that information to the board. We provided some of that the data, and we will continue to bridge off of that information that we have been working on and provide a comprehensive report for you.
Okay.
Okay.
And we will move to Vice President Reyes.
Thank you, President Dare. So I know there's a lot of confusion about the transportation issue. The issue of primarily about us having to bus charter non-public in those routes. So, Mr. McElroy, can you talk a little bit, because you mentioned we have 531 routes, 590 bus drivers. That could be a little bit confusing. We're trying to explain the need for bus drivers and the how we transport our kids. Can you talk a little bit about that difference and how a route is determined? And then I want to clarify that the decision to have to bus charter non-public is a state mandate. Talk about that, please.
President Dare, Board Member Reyes, thank you. And you may have to remind me on part of your question because you asked about 5 questions just
Sorry
now.
about that.
So let's start with the law, if you don't mind. The law does require that we transport community and non-public school students and Columbus City school students, right? The law states that. But the law states that we have to do that kindergarten through 8th grade. But since Columbus is a very, very unique school district, we transport special education students, etc. One, if we transport special education students in high school, that also requires us to transport charter non-public school students in high school. Secondly, state law allows the Board of Education to not provide transportation for high school, meaning we would only transport kindergarten through 8. But again, we would not be able to transport special education high school students, other high school students in order for us not to transport charter non-public high school students. That's the issue right there. Now, to answer your question in terms of—
Mr. McElroy, before you go on, one of the reasons, that was a decision made by the board several years ago due to the fact that many of our students weren't able to get to school and transport, and we wanted to see we had data stating that we had a decrease in student attendance from 9th to 12th grade. And one of the solutions was to ensure that we provided transportation for our high school students. In enacting that as a board, then we fell into the state mandate of transporting all others, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Also, in terms of staffing, to take you back pre-COVID, we ran 704 bus routes with 765 bus drivers. currently with 596 active drivers and others off of leave of absence, obviously that changes our capacity. So therefore, based on our current model, transporting our charter school students to school first, and then transporting Columbus City School elementary school students, CTE students, and Curatech students, that also absorbs all of our capacity. So we have to, one, like it was suggested, look at how we, the actual ridership versus eligible ridership, and make adjustments accordingly. Also, we have to watch our call-off rate to be transparent. You know, simple numbers, if we exceed 9 or 10% call-off, therefore we're right at that 530, 531 threshold. So we have to work with our staff to make sure they come to work, and they're doing very well at this time, but you know how things can change. If there was any other portion of your question I need to answer, please remind me.
No, I think you did excellent. And the reason I'm asking that question is today the governor was had a press conference and he talked about making sure that districts that signed up for teachers to get vaccinated needed to be back to school. He mentioned the school in Cincinnati and he mentioned us. That there's the date of March 1st that we need to get to. What are we doing to ensure, and I think it goes back to Board Member Beckerly, what do we need to do? What does the community need to do? This may not be to you, Mr. McElroy, it might be to Dr. Dixon, to ensure that we do not, according to the governor, break that agreement. So I mean, we are on 2/16 and he's saying 3/1 is our deadline. Where are we at here?
Thank you, Board Member Reyes. When we decided to return back in the hybrid and blended learning, it had nothing to do with vaccinations. I want to remind the public. As you recall, we were going to initially return after the MLK, Martin Luther King Jr. holiday. But at that time, the state was still had the governor announced a health advisory. So we moved that back and decided on February 1st. So our decisions to come back, even with our pre-K through 5 model, we have been working on it. Remember, we brought in our Career Center students in for 3 weeks. We started them off in November. We had to move them because of the health advisories. So our plan did not have anything to do with the vaccines. Okay, so we later learned that the governor made an announcement about vaccinations, and he did offer all the school districts an opportunity to prioritize their staffs. And he stated in that you have to agree to bring your students back in remote or hybrid. We knew we had complications and we stated those complications up front. We knew, and we've known all year, that we had a transportation barrier. But we did not want that to impact our ability to get our staffs vaccinated. You know, so we didn't want the challenge of, yes, we're bringing our students back. We know that we can bring them back safely. We know we can have the mitigation strategies. We know we had our PPE, our staffs and our buildings were ready for our students and our teachers. Now, we have, as I've stated, we have worked hard and we have opened our doors. We have transitioned since February 1st, over 24,000 students safely back in school. We're going to continue to work on plans for our 6 through 12 students. We know that that is not going to, we stated transportation challenges and we still have staff coverage challenges. Those are challenges that the transportation challenge we have stated up front. We will hope that the governor will see and understand that what we have done in all efforts to get our students back It won't happen by March 1st, but we are still working to bring our students back in March. We have stated that we're going to bring our seniors back in small cohorts. We're looking at plans to bring our middle schools. None of those plans have stopped. But a district our size, we cannot move as swiftly as other districts can. We believe that the phase-in model works best for us. We have large class sizes. We had to break those class sizes up into cohorts. So we believe the model and the pace that we have now is what's best for our district because of the challenges that we face. And we are going to continue to work in that end to bring more students back. A phase-in model. We're going to continue to monitor transportation. We're going to continue to monitor our staffing so that we can have the coverage that we need. And we believe that we will have the support we hope we have the support of our governor, because we do have a plan. It is not like we have said this is pre-K through 5 and we're stopping. We, again, have over 24,000 students we have brought back safely. We plan to bring our other students back in a phased approach. And we hope that with that plan, that we demonstrate that we have a plan, that we hope that that will satisfy the governor's office and show that, we have 4,000 people that's been vaccinated. That is a plus for us. The largest school district with the largest staff, we needed to make sure that we ensure that our staff members received a vaccine. And that's why we worked so hard with Columbus Public Health to prioritize Columbus City Schools. We went out front. We did that. We went and worked with our charter non-pub partners. We sat down and had meetings and asked for flexibilities in their schedules. That was the efforts of Columbus City Schools team to do that because we knew the challenges we had ahead, but it was worth it when we saw on February 1st that those students came to school, and the February 8th when we saw our fourth and fifth graders, and as we bring our additional cohorts, it's going to be worth the time that we've taken to prepare well and to make sure that we have a solid plan that we can sustain.
And if I may just add real quickly that all of this is trying to balance the health considerations of our students and staff members with trying to make sure we bring students back and have them benefit, from being in an educational setting again. And as the superintendent just stated, when we are working with Columbus Public Health, who are really working their hardest as well, and working with us and doing what's best for our staff and students. And Mr. McElroy, if I'm wrong, please, chime in. But I think our average bus ride for our students, because we're busing students only who are 2 miles or more from their school building, is about 30 minutes for that average student. Well, remember, with COVID-19, you don't want to be in a situation, especially a closed bus with the windows closed. You don't want to, be in that type of situation for 15 minutes or more if you can help it. And if you are going to be in a situation like that, you want to make sure that you got the social distancing to protect the students as best you can. And so trying to balance all of these needs are one of the reasons why we're in this type of predicament, with also, as Mr. McElroy, shared in his answer, we were over 760 some drivers as of March of 2020. We're down now to 590 something, right? That means people have either retired, resigned from the district because of maybe the COVID situation, or they're out on some type of leave of absence because of the COVID situation or some other situation. So again, all of these factors are coming together in a perfect storm to create the challenges that we're trying to overcome.
I appreciate that, Dr. Stanford. And I think maybe where Ms. Beckerly was going with the transparency piece, I think it would be helpful for our parents to see, this is our plan A, this is our plan B. If then, if this happens, if this doesn't happen, this is where we're at. This is where we should go. Because we've talked about equity. We've talked about getting our children back to school, not only our K-5, but our middle school and our high school. And a lot of our kids, a lot of our teachers, bus drivers, we have an outstanding district that wants to come back. We have also mitigating factors that are just keep on throwing us for a loop. And we're not the only organization or district or company that's going through this. But I think communicating to our parents, to our students, this is our plan B. This is what we hope to do. If we don't get this and we don't get this and we don't get this, this may be plan B. This may be plan C. And I think that's where our community may be wanting more. And then they can make the correct decisions for their children. Do I keep them at home and online? And I tell my employer, I have to work at home for the rest of the year, and I'm going to look at next year in a different way, or do I know that approximately somewhere between here and there might be an opportunity for my child to go back. But I believe that's what our parents, our teachers, everyone's talking about. What is the plan, school district, knowing full well that it can change. I mean, we've seen it. Everyone. Even in our work environments, we've seen that it changes. We're coming back. Now now that people have remote. There's monies out there from, all this COVID money, all this other stuff. Where and who should we talk to say, we need this to help with this situation? How can we help? And what state legislators can we help to help the charter non-public? We know those are our kids also. So to sit here and say, we're not going to transport them, those children can ultimately be ours. They were ours before they left. They live in our community. We want all children to be educated. But I think, again, our parents need to know, what is the plan? Where can I go to see it? Who can I talk to make sure that it's happening? We all understand there's a lot of indifference and a lot of things, moving parts. But if we could do that somehow soon, that would be appreciated.
Thank you. I want to say again, and thank you for that, Board Member Reyes, that it was a partnership with the Charter Non-Pubs. And we sat at a table together and we were working together to say, we need to make sure that we can transport Columbus, the kids that live in the city of Columbus, right? That's the approach that we took to allow for flexibility. And I would like to say publicly again to them, I thank them because they were able to shift their schedules to allow for our students to be transported, right? We had different iterations. We had different plans. I want to say to our public that, we have union agreements, so our plans had to be negotiated. Right. So when you move from one instructional model to another, remember we're not teaching the way we taught last year. We have to have union agreements. So we sat and we worked together with our union partners to craft the current iteration that we have. That's why we have Digital Academy. That's why we have our current remote learning and our blended model. So I know the public wants to see some additional iterations if we learn from what our other districts may be doing, but that was the plan that we agreed upon with our partners and the plan that we're committed to for the remainder of this year. And then we would start talking about some additional plans for next year. And you'll hear about our summer program later. But just know that those plans are, we thoughtfully, we engaged with our union leaders and we planned about what we believe would be the best model during a pandemic with all the unknowns and just really trying to do the best that we can with the information that we had. And remember, we started planning last spring. So we know a lot more now than we knew then when we started planning and started making agreements. We have learned so much. And so we're excited to put those plans in place for next year. And the last thing too, when we started planning, and we faced many of our challenges for how do we get all of our students. Again, we were transparent in saying that transportation would be a barrier. So that meant for us that it was no way that we can transport our students and the charter pub, non-pub students with the current COVID guidelines, transportation guidelines. And I think that is so important. Our team for years have been transporting all of our students who needed and wanted transportation and have done that well. But when we are facing the new guidelines, and in order to transport our students safely, because our students have a longer bus ride than most, because we offer open enrollment. So our kids have a lot of choice, our families have choice. And with choice, that caused us to have some limitations with how many students that could ride a bus for that long duration. Right. So until we see some additional guidelines from CDC that suggests that you don't have to have that distancing on the school bus, then we are limited to either following those guidelines or taking a risk and say that we want to transport more students, knowing that that bus ride will be longer than the 15 minutes that CDC and our local health officials have suggested. But I agree, we need to put more information for families so families can make better decisions. We will. We were listening to our families when we offered them to move back to when we offered families the option of going to Digital Academy because they were not quite sure. So we said, you know what, if you want to go to Digital Academy, we will still have that option for you, and to our families who wanted to move their students to our blended. So we're trying to be as flexible as we can. If we need to give more information out, we will. A lot of information, as Dr. Stanford stated, is on the website. So families, please go to the website. A lot of this information, if not all, is there. If we need to figure out a way to highlight that information in a very different manner, maybe cascade it out again, we will certainly do that, as well as highlight it on our virtual sessions that I have on Thursday, but they also have them on Tuesdays. So we will, as much as possible, to your point, communicate, over-communicate, get new information out to our stakeholders as we learn more and as we get more information and get to finalizing rather our 6 through 12 plans. But thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Nixon.
Thank you, Vice President Reyes. And before we go to Dr. Pierce, let me just say that, I think here in the Columbus community, in our sister governments, and the way that we have been working together, those, within government, as well as in the city and county education system, to overcome together is something commendable. Working locally with the health department, with our charter non-publics, with the mayor's office, with CODA, with Smart Columbus, we are really trying to overcome systemic issues that are heightened by COVID. All of this has been underlying in the surface, and now a big bright light is shined on it. But we have partners here in our local area that want to step up and help to find solutions. So thank you for that. It's pretty sad, though, that our state government doesn't want to be a partner and instead want to chastise and blame and hold hostage in some ways local school districts when they're just trying to do the best they can. And it's also unfortunate that it is the large, urban, economically challenged districts that are being targeted in this situation. Everyone is doing the best they can. Everyone wants students to come back. We are all fighting COVID. And I'm just proud of what we've done here as a community, as a local education system, together to do the best we can right now. And we will continue to work to move forward. So thank you, team. Thank you, board members. Thank you, city partners. Thank you, charter non-publics. Thank you, businesses. Thank you, families. Thank you, staff. Thank you, everyone in our local government who has been really here to help and support. So I'll move on to Dr. Pierce now for her questions.
Thank you so much. So I have a couple of questions that really relate to the issues that I've been bringing to the forefront for our last couple of meetings. First off, want to definitely start with our seniors. How many graduation plans do we have signed as of today?
Can I hold on before you? So Dr. Pierce, she didn't finish her whole report. We've only heard a portion. So Dr. Dixon, I'm not sure so we've heard about transportation and substitutes. That's as far as we are in her report.
Did we get to the summer? Because I've read
No.
through.
We are not yet to the summer. We just those two.
Okay.
I know.
Well,
So
wow.
I don't know if you
That's
have
very-
questions about
Okay.
transportation. Yeah.
I'll stick to the transportation and subs then.
Okay.
Okay, so transportation, real basically, are we going to relaunch that transportation survey to allow families to indicate if they're willing to provide transportation for their students?
Yes, I think that has gone out. When was that be launched, Scott or Steve?
This is a transportation one.
Yes.
So if I can interject, we worked on the verbiage and have sent it over to the Office of Accountability and IT. It should go out very soon.
Mr. McElroy, could you explain why we're working with IT and with accountability?
Yes, Dr. Stanford, and bear with me, I'm having a delay for some reason. But yes, once we complete the verbiage, that information goes to the Office of Accountability and our IT, specifically our application development section, because that information has to be sent via email and through our Infinite Campus process. So we have to utilize the Infinite Campus process to identify the families who receive Yellow Bus transportation, and then it's sent to them specifically. Obviously, we want to send it to the correct families, and we have to have it translated in, I believe, 5 different languages.
So thank you for sharing that. That's key and important to know because we might want to, when we do send that survey out, be very clear with the community on which families can expect to see that survey. I think a lot of the feedback that I've gotten from the community is from individuals, families and caregivers indicating that they are more than willing to bring their students to school. However, in your response just now, you made it clear that we really want to focus on those students that are assigned a yellow bus. So I think the onus is on us to make sure that our community understands that even though you want to bring your child to school, if your child's not assigned a yellow bus, we still have this transportation issue. So I strongly recommend that when we do relaunch it, can we be very clear in terms of communicating that message to our families? Good point. My second question, and I might be hearing numbers wrong, I'm hearing that we have 590 drivers and about 530 routes. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
Okay. So based upon that, we have enough drivers to get the current routes that we have outlined, or are there additional routes that we have not outlined or accounted for that would capture our middle school students, our high school students?
Dr. Pierce, we still have some charter non-public schools who have not returned to in-person learning that are still planning to do so. So yes, those students would also require transportation. And as mentioned, we obviously still have Columbus City School students past the 5th grade who also would need transportation.
Excellent. So might I again suggest that when we relaunch the survey, as we're sharing this information with the community, that we're very clear that that 531 routes currently is for the students that we're currently transporting back and forth, that we actually have a need of upward beyond 531 routes. Because if you're a parent that's just tuned into this meeting and hears that we have 590 drivers and 531 routes, then I'm going to automatically assume what's the issue. So if we could, again, clarify that for the community, I think that would be great. In terms of our substitute issue, I know that we face grave challenges when it comes to substitutes with teacher attendance. I know last year we had a OSU professor bring some research forward that talked about the importance of making sure that our teachers had good attendance and were building solid relationships with students. But this question kind of relates to the both and. When we think about those teachers and those educators that we are getting the vaccines for, are we seeing any correlation between those teachers going into the classroom? Are we seeing some teachers that are getting the vaccine and then choosing not to go into the classroom even after they have the vaccine?
Well, you mean with a total dose after dose 1 or when dose 2? Because, it's.
Well, with dose 1, are they showing any apprehensions, any anxieties, just in terms of, I don't know if I'm still ready to go in the classroom?
Yeah, well, first, we know we're not making it mandatory. So staff have the option if they want to take the vaccine or not. Have we surveyed our staff members? No, we have not surveyed to get their reaction yet. We are looking at some possible survey data after we complete the second dose. But we probably have some anecdotals that people can speak to, but nothing that we can report out that will can speak to the entire organization.
I appreciate that, because you know exactly where I'm going. When it comes to our teachers, if we could survey them and get in touch with them in ways that we can understand if they have any apprehensions, any anxiety, even after that second dosage. So then we're able to better prepare and anticipate those teachers that may decide to take that additional leave and not return to the classroom in person.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So those are the only questions I have for transportation and subs. Thank you, guys.
Okay, then we'll come back for second question. So please keep it brief from board member Beckerly and Ragland. Beckerly's first.
Not Cole first?
I'm sorry, you're right. I totally wrote that down in the message. You're right. I'm so sorry, board member Cole. You are next on your first question.
Thank you. I appreciate it. My first question is to this information that was particularly provided on transportation and also the health piece. Can we make this information available if it is not already on the parent and student portals? I think it's absolutely imperative that our students as well as our parents have opportunity to access this information quite easily without necessarily having to go to the website. Maybe there should be a link that connects them to this and may then take them to the website to have it immediately posted in front of them. I think the more educated our families and children are, and I specifically am saying our children, are on the health workings that have been taking place, the steps that have been taking place to ensure health and wellness in the district, not just on the social emotional learning, but also on the physical wellness side. And I applaud our teachers for stepping up, those 4,000 plus teachers who have stepped up and got their first inoculation and looking to get their second, being courageous enough to do that, because I was not. But I really applaud them in their work, and I think our kids should know about it. The other piece is this, because we are a district of choice, I think that options should be available. And what I mean by that is this. It seems as if for students and families who say that I have a discomfort with sending my child or coming back to school, as the kids saying, my son is of age where, if he wanted to articulate with sound cogent argument why it is that he does not want to go back to a school building, I'm listening. He's old enough to do that. So I'm including youngsters in this as well. But it seems as if those who don't want to come back, the only option is this asynchronous virtual academy piece, number one, for families. And it seems to not have as much of a popular taking. The other option, of course, is this kind of blended piece. But what about an option that makes synchronous learning, where we step up aggressively our synchronous learning presence for students who opt out of saying that, or in families who opt out of having their children come back? I think this is one of the ways in which we recapture students. We don't continue to lose them. So I think that we need to strengthen our synchronous online virtual learning platform as another viable option here to increase student engagement in the classroom. I for one, am certainly concerned about our senior graduation prospects. I'm tremendously concerned about it. I'll just be very honest. So to me, I think one of those strategies we need to aggressively go after is how do we expand synchronous learning opportunities so that, albeit children may not be in the classroom, they still have direct access to one the same way that they would on hybrid days off. Whether those days are Thursday and Friday or Monday and Tuesday. So I really like us to have some sort of plan or idea around that. If there has been discussion, please let me know.
Yeah, thank you, Board Member Cole. I think you're on to something. One, we've seen a lot of positive results with our digital academy. We have already stated to our team that we want to see how we can make this a part of our portfolio moving forward. Because some students are having great success online. Even though that model is self-paced, they're having some success. We also have seen a lot of students who are doing well in remote learning. To your point, we've had students who were not engaged in a traditional setting. And this way students can come in, be engaged, and not have to walk in a school building for whatever reasons, particularly our older students. And we plan to leverage this online opportunity. Our teams have already been excited about it. They've seen great models. We even saw some great models last summer under summer school. So we absolutely plan to leverage this in our plans moving forward. Secondly, we all have concerns about our seniors. We have some projects. We have a project, Knock on Doors, that's been facilitated by the engagement team. We're checking on our seniors. We have some small cohorts we're planning to bring back, some targeted cohorts that we want to bring back in our schools. And we even have our LECs are leveraging plans for our seniors. So we're wrapping our arms around our seniors. Last Thursday, during my virtual session with our families, it was about our seniors, how to make sure our seniors are not only engaged, but they are filling out scholarship applications. They are making sure that they have their FAFSA. So I know ICANN was on to make sure that parents know how they can access their advisors, et cetera. We have a lot of resources for our seniors, and we're not sure that people really knew how many people are in our buildings, a high school, just to work with our seniors. So we made sure we highlighted that last week, and we're going to put that information on a banner on the website. So families can go and immediately don't have to search through our website, but they will see a banner on seniors, how to help seniors, guides to senior success. All of that information will take them to our senior page automatically on the website. So we know, to your point, there are a lot of challenges during this pandemic. We know that there are some students that are not that we have yet to engage, and we've been very transparent about that. We know that we have had students and families made different choices and have left the district to go to either charter or non-publics because it was better for their schedules. So we have not shied away from knowing that as the largest school district in this city, that we have a lot of work to yet do to make sure that we are engaging some of our students better. So we're working on that. And that's why our summer plan that you're going to hear more about in a few minutes, it is a summer experience. And we're taking an entire different approach to not only remediation, but acceleration and having fun and engaging learning experiences and not focus on a quote unquote loss. But we want kids to come to our summer programs, be excited about learning, not to be met with they lost anything, because that was beyond this, out of our control. So we're going to leverage our online opportunities, make sure the experiences that we have for students will make sure that they gain some knowledge, some things that they may not know, and we making sure that those lessons and those concepts they should be mastering. We make sure that we hit those concepts and make sure we do all of that this summer. But at the same time, just leverage the opportunities to do something different. You know, we've said before, when we open up in the future, in the fall, we should not look like we did back in 2018, 19. We should be a different, or 1920, we will be a different CCS. And we will let students lead the way. We will also make sure students are co-designing their learning experiences with us. And so we're excited about those opportunities.
So thank you for that very quickly. And thank you, Madam President, for entertaining my brief questions. I really like to see us work a little more vigilantly too, Dr. Dixon, specifically to addressing and incorporating the voices of a broader base of students who aren't just our ambassadors or that higher tier of higher performance tier of students who are either, you know, leaders, or they're students who are, you know, all 4.0 or 3.5 students. I think it's really incumbent of us to, if you really want to design a curriculum that is going to attract and sustain, retain students, I think we need to think a little further beyond just the population of those super bright students that we typically look at to begin with, please. In addition to that, I would like it if you would reiterate to your staff from the top down, please, that we are trying to work at a pace that is accommodating to all students, especially our special needs students. I've gotten numbers of calls from parents, and one who sent me a voicemail, not just this past Sunday, concerned about his student at a school, and he's a special needs student, a student with what I would call severe needs, that is being held to some kind of homework, you know, timeline. And you talked about being flexible with our students, and I'd like you to please reiterate and re-stress to some of our educators, as hard as they're working, that some of our students need a bit of a slower pace, and we're losing students quite possibly because of that. And final, please, again, let's strengthen our advocacy, and where any one of us as your board can be at the table and speak at the table very assertively about transportation and the need to expand capacities for districts to do things. And if you're not going to do that, then make it something that makes it, you know, unrestricted income for us. Help us turn it into a line of business. Mr. Cole, what do you mean? What I mean is that we've got a 700+ bus fleet. If all of these other charter and, you know, other public schools that we have to actually accommodate for transportation, if we have to utilize that, then maybe they could have a supplemental budget that the state provides that then comes back to us as a line of business so that we can then fan out the talent and the buses to transport those kids separately if need be. I think that there are options here. We're a district of choice. And as a district of choice, we should strengthen our options. So please, however we can step up to the table, I'm here. However we can step up to the table to talk to our state leaders about building this kind of cooperative ecosystem, not a competitive, hyper-competitive, but a cooperative ecosystem that works for everybody, for our kids, because we're trying to educate everybody. Then let's figure out how we do that. But thank you.
Thank you, Board Member Cole. We'll go to, for second question, Board Member Beckerly. Board Member Ragland withdrew.
Okay, I have a couple of questions for Dr. King, I believe. Hi. I've gotten a bunch of questions from the community and I don't know how to answer about the mixing of cohorts when we have the absence of a sub, and are we still complying with the health guidelines? Because there's something that's counterintuitive about that if you're creating a cohort that's supposed to stay together and then, so can you explain that?
Sure, thanks, President Adair and Board Member Beckerly. So the CDC guidelines look at cohorting and really all mitigation strategies on a continuum of risk, knowing that, as we heard, everyone's doing their best and we're doing our best for children. And so when we look at those continuums, and especially with the new CDC guidelines, really our first big thing is masks and social distancing. So cohorting is part of that, and it is another layer in our strategy. When we're looking at that continuum, we have to make some decisions based on that continuum of risk. And so because we are implementing all of the other strategies with fidelity, and because we have our school nurses really involved in looking at transmission and contact tracing and how that's all working together, there are times, yes, when our cohorts, our single cohort may move into another cohort, but we're really tracking that very closely. And we, again, look at that continuum when we're looking at our educating our children in in-person learning.
So just to, if I could repeat what I think I heard, the most important things to safety in the buildings, I guess in any public place, is the 6 feet apart and the mask. And so the other things are sort of like secondary layers, but the primary thing is, and so.
They're not secondary, but they are another layer. I guess I wouldn't use primary or secondary, but we do know that masks and social distancing are the key factors in decreasing transmission in schools. And if at times we shift that continuum a little bit with other mitigation strategies, we can still provide a safe place of learning.
And then did the CDC, the new CDC guidelines, did they talk at all about infection rates in the community and or positivity rates as something that should be considered?
They did talk about rates, and this again is on this continuum risk. So there are, in my mind, I'll really see it kind of as a 3D model with many variables that go into, again, deciding the overall risk for students. So they do talk about transmission rates, and they do talk about, they're really focusing now on looking at the 7-day case rate, the previous 7-day case rate per 100,000 population. Whereas before they were looking at a 14-day, so now the CDC has moved that down. And they've also changed their categories for that from moderate to moderate risk to low, moderate, and high. I'd have to look at that again to be
Yeah,
really
yeah, no,
clear
I
about
don't need the
that.
numbers. I just, in my
And
mind,
so
that's what's happening out in the community seems to me to be a big factor. You know, and I've been watching all those briefings we get from Edward Johnson, and when I see that 7-day rate as low as it is right now, I'm like, okay, you know, and so I'm just wondering if it takes it as part of the equation.
It very much is, and we're working really closely and having conversation with Columbus Public Health. Even though these new guidelines were issued Thursday, it takes, again, in our large district and our partnerships to have those conversations and work through where we're all standing on that. But, you know, I was just, again, very encouraged to see the CDC taking these very clear strategies and giving us clear guidance throughout the country as to what we're looking at. Again, these are recommendations. And again, I visualize this 3D kind of spinning model in there. So we have this variable and this variable, and then having conversation as to what is the best strategy. I hope that helps.
No, that helps a lot. Thank you. The other question I had about is that we currently have 4,000 of our employees have been vaccinated, roughly. So that the denominator then would be 14,000, 10,000. What's the 4,000 out of how many employees?
Do we have 8,000? Someone's going to have to help me with that.
Yeah, no, I figured. I guess maybe, the greater question is, I guess it doesn't matter.
9,000 employees, sorry.
Okay.
Thanks, Mike.
Are we doing anything to try to encourage, because I think I heard you say, or somebody say they thought we'd have half of our employees, a little over half vaccinated. Is there any campaign or any effort to encourage, get that, nudge that percentage up? Staff meetings where we talk about, you know, the safety of the vaccine or how it was, you know, I know I got a lot more comfortable with the vaccine when I understood that how they were able to speed up the creation of it because of modeling they didn't have before. I just, you know, anything, I don't know. It seems to me I'd love to see that a higher percentage of our overall staff.
So I know that school nurses have been individually talking to our staff when there are questions. As far as staff meetings, we are prepared. We have videos. We didn't make them. We don't need to. There's plenty of information out there. And so we have instructed, for all of us school nurses to be available during staff meetings to talk about that and looking at those plans to encourage staff. So I want to be clear. What we want to do is give staff the best information possible to make their own decision about getting a vaccination. That's really where we want to stand with our staff members, because, you know, it is their decision whether or not to be immunized.
Good point. All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Board Member Beckerly. That ends the questions on those two topics, and we will move on to additional topics. Madam Superintendent, back to you.
Okay, thank you. So our last topic would be on our summer school experience. And I want to, before Elise Clark comes on, I want to say again, we are so excited about announcing the 2021 summer experience for all of our kiddos. There's been a lot of planning. The planning started last summer, and it just got bigger and better. So thank you for all of those teachers and administrators who've been working on this. And we also have an afternoon portion that we've been working with Columbus Rex and Park, and we have Matt Smito here. He may want to speak to that later, but there's going to be a handoff. So when our students finish with our experience, there will be an opportunity for them to engage in Parks and Recs so that families can have some additional choices from a 4-day program, and they know there's a safe space that their students can go enroll after they finish our summer experience. So we're just so excited. We're targeting lots of students, and we want families to really get excited, get the kiddos excited about summer 2021. So without further ado, I turn it over to Elise Clark to share, and Kenny Lee and the team to share the summer experience. We should have some music. We forgot the music.
Good evening, President Adair, Vice President Reyes, Dr. Dixon, Internal Auditor Smith, and Mr. Bohoric. It is our distinct pleasure to present to you the 2021 Columbus City Schools Summer Experience. In our presentation, we will describe the district programming that will be provided. Individual buildings may also have reading and math-focused programming available to students that are currently attending their school. These programs will be designed by the school-based team using district resources. Okay. Last year, we presented a plan for the summer enrichment that we believed would allow our students to explore their strengths and provide them with the skills and knowledge to propel them to academic success. With the onset of a global pandemic, we were not able to deliver that programming. Our students and teachers have been working to adjust to a time like no other during this school year. And this experience has shown the resilience of both. The need for a rich summer experience is more critical now than ever. Our focus this year is engagement and empowerment of students and educators. This is aligned to the district's focus on meeting the needs of the whole child, as well as Ohio's strategic plan for education, with a focus on foundational knowledge and skills, well-rounded content, leadership and reasoning, and social emotional learning. For students, our programming is designed to include hands-on, relevant, and rigorous experiences. For teachers, the programming includes opportunities for professional development focused on inquiry-based learning and gives them choices based upon their own professional growth, interests, and goals. We have also been afforded the opportunity to partner with The Ohio State University to include experiences with and for pre-service teachers. Our plan is to deliver in-person learning with all health and safety protocols in place. This also includes smaller teacher-student ratios to allow students to be able to attend on a daily basis. Our plan includes an expansion of in-person summer learning centers with programming at 5 high school sites, 10 middle school sites, and 13 elementary school sites. High school credit recovery programming, or VCAP, will be offered through the Digital Academy. Please note that the number of sites may be adjusted if staffing and student enrollment numbers dictate a need for change. As stated previously, our plan is to deliver high-quality programming with in-person instruction while adhering to health and safety protocols. We also realize that we are in a continuous state of change and must be prepared to adjust to remote learning if necessary. With that thought in mind, on April 12th, we will be able to determine whether or not we will continue with our plans for in-person summer learning or move to planning for remote instruction. In either case, we will, with our partners, be able to deliver the experiences we will describe in our presentation this evening. At this time, I would like to introduce Kelly Rivers, the Director of Early Childhood Education, who will present the summer experience for our youngest learners.
Kelly, you're on mute.
I was steady going too. Good evening. The purpose of the pre-K summer experience is to assist incoming kindergarten students and their families so that they are confident and ready for success in school. Students will have the opportunity to experience kindergarten readiness activities prior to the start of kindergarten through project-based learning. We are partnering with Teaching and Learning Collaborative to provide customized inquiry-based STEM projects for our earliest learners to complete over the course of summer. Students will also participate in a range of developmentally appropriate activities, focusing on key early literacy skills, math, and social and emotional lessons. We will utilize the Schoenbaum curriculum, which is a research-based summer program developed by the Crane Center of Early Childhood Research and Policy. This program also includes a family and community component to establish a strong parent-school partnership. I will now turn it over to Leslie Kelly.
Hello. It is wonderful to be here with you all and be able to share this program once again. We're very excited for the opportunity to bring this summer experience to our elementary students. Our K-2 program is titled Growing and Going, and it will consist of 6 mini camps. And our community partner is Franklin Park Conservatory. You can see the themes there, the 6 mini camp themes. My favorite is still the Pirate Palooza. Very excited about Pirate Palooza. Each of these camps will begin with 2 days. The first 2 days will consist of team building, mini challenges, and explicit standards-based instruction, where we are looking at those priority standards that we have identified that are those key standards we want to focus on this summer to make sure that our students are strengthening their understanding in those grade level standards. And then on Thursday and Friday, they will take their learning from Monday and Tuesday and apply that to a larger design project or design challenge that is being created in collaboration with our community partner. Our students will take a field trip to the Franklin Park Conservatory Children's Garden, which is actually a great place to take a field trip to because it is outside. We will also have a family day in August that will be a CCS family day, where families will be able to come and experience the Children's Garden, but also see some of their students' work reflected there as well. And our rising first graders, current kindergartners, will also have a mini camp experience at Spruce Run. In our elementary program, which next we're going to talk about the 3 through 5 program, but there will also be a family programming that is very similar to what we saw with our Saturday Academy, where we invite families to come in for different sessions and how they can support their students' learning. So our 3 through 5 program is called Exploring and Excelling, and our community partner with this program is COSI. And the structure will be very similar. On Monday and Tuesday, our students will engage in those explicit standards-based lessons, as well as team building and mini design challenges to prepare them for the larger design challenges on Thursday and Friday. We see here the 6 different mini camps. I have to tell you, my favorite is superhero science. I am a fan of all things superheroes. And then our plan is for our 3 through 5 students to take a field trip to COSI. If for whatever reason we are unable to make that happen, we do have a virtual experience designed to take the place of that. And then to keep along with that idea of that family engagement, at the end of our 6-week program, our 3 through 5 campers will receive a COSI camp theme kit that they will be able to take home and share with their families and continue that learning. And I will turn it over to Kenny.
Good evening. I'm here to speak about the 6-12 programming, beginning with 6-8, our middle schools, and we are partnering with the PAST Foundation, and we are doing things differently across the secondary level. Ms. Clark talked about engagement as being one of the key ingredients to the summer experience, and we believe in order to increase our student engagement in that 6-12 environment, we have to do things differently. We have to go into a very innovative space in terms of how can we get our students re-engaged with school. And so in 6-8, we're partnering with the PAST Foundation, and we've identified 8 design challenges that we really think are going to spark the interest of our middle school students. You can see on the screen, it includes robotics, fashion, additive manufacturing, esports, computer science and cybersecurity, aviation, medical, as well as urban agriculture and the culinary arts. Within each of these 8 design challenges, there are common threads that include math, entrepreneurship, communication, project management, and design thinking. And what all of these have in common is that they are going to expose these 6-8 students to 21st century career paths. They're going to be hands-on, they're going to be engaging. It's not going to be period 1, I go to math, and period 2, I go to science. It's going to be a different type of learning experience. And we're also going to provide, through the PASS Foundation, micro-credentials for students and teachers. And research has shown that micro-credentialing for students and teachers, where both groups are able to showcase their learning and what they have gotten from this experience, goes a long way in terms of long-term learning and application. This would also be part of the partnership with The Ohio State University, where we would leverage Ohio State pre-service MED students to support and work alongside our excellent CCS summer staff. For high school, we are partnering with the Korda Institute for Teaching to deliver a similar project approach. However, at the high school level, we want the projects to have a community focus, community impact. There's going to be a face-to-face delivery at 4 high school sites with teams of teachers working with smaller groups of students to really deepen and enhance the learning experience. These Korda projects are going to focus on engaging standards-aligned learning experiences and really looking at solving real community-focused problems. For example, social justice, race and culture, health and safety, business. These are topics that we know are at the forefront of our high schoolers' thoughts, what is really consuming their experience and what has consumed their experience since we went out on March 13th of last year. These projects would be interdisciplinary, they would be inclusive, and they would also, we believe, increase the number of students who ultimately, for the start of next year, will be on track for graduation through that increased engagement and relevance. Again, this would be an opportunity for our Ohio State MED partners to work alongside our excellent CCS high school teaching staff. There will still be credit recovery options, as Ms. Clark stated, for grades 9 through 12, which would be virtual. We are still maintaining that program. There will also be College Credit Plus summer opportunities through our partners through Otterbein, Columbus State, Ohio State, and others. In addition, following the theme of engagement and the idea of getting our students outdoors, as Leslie talked about with our elementary students, we want to provide that opportunity also for our middle and high school students. So we are providing our students with the opportunity to go to Spruce Run, our environmental education center. And we have 3 high school aligned initiatives. One is for high school volunteer credit, where there would be a counselor and training program. We have Project Adventure, where it would serve as a PE credit option for those students who opt to participate in that program, as well as an advanced environmental science program for students in grades 11 through 12, where they would earn science credit through a Credit Flex opportunity. We also have middle school enrichment extensions that vary by the number of sessions offered, as well as the duration in terms of weeks. But these enrichment extensions include the physics of flight, citizen science, which is about career exploration in the sciences, art exploration, ecology, and a survivors camp that is based on the book Hatchet. And like Leslie talked about, we're also getting our kindergarten students out to Spruce Run for a 1-week experience at Spruce Run. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Kira.
Thanks, Kenny. So I want to note that everything that has been reviewed by Kenny and Leslie and Kelly is inclusive of most of our learners. For our learners that require more significant support throughout the school day, we are expanding our summer experience opportunities significantly. So in past years, we have provided an opportunity through what we've called summer care for 80 students. And this year we are expanding our summer experience for students that might be in a multiple disability classroom to over 300 seats. So we are also partnering with COSI, with Franklin Park Conservatory, and an additional unified arts curriculum to support our students. So these students will be included as their typical peers, will attend the same locations that were Elise already reviewed. And in addition to that, in addition to that theme-based programming that will be the same as typical peers, we are also looking for our intervention specialists to really target those IEP goals so that these learners have an opportunity for continued practice and targeted support on intervention that we know they need specific to them. So this summer, we know we are going to need to follow the same and similar health and safety protocols that we're following this year. So we are looking at support, again, from our health providers, such as nurses. Also, wraparound service from our related service providers, such as OT, PT, and speech therapists. So these services might be provided kind of in an outpatient setting, appointment-based program, but also push-in service to our students that are attending summer experience, both in the general education side and in our single classroom settings.
Special summer programming will also be provided by Career and Technical Education, Gifted, Talented, and ESL and Support Services. Middle school students may participate in a 2-week-long career camp focusing on robotics, mechatronics, culinary, or manicurist programming through Career Ed. High school students planning to take Advanced Placement English, Lit or Lang, and or Advanced Placement Calculus will also have the opportunity to participate in a week-long AP Bootcamp course, 1 week per course. And English learners who are in high school will receive services in a 2-week-long program. Sign up for these programs will be coordinated by each department and information will be sent out to schools. We are committed to designing and developing high-quality programs for all students. We realize that summer experiences must go beyond remediation and provide our students with reasons to learn and opportunities to demonstrate their learning in a meaningful way. Student registration will open in the parent portal on Monday, March 1st, 2021. Thank you. Are there any questions at this time?
Before you go to questions, I just want to tell you what a privilege it is for me to lead a team of educators that can provide such a rich array of programs for the Columbus City School children. And I think what I love the best about this is that it leverages being in Columbus and all the resources that are right here. We don't often think of all of these, and then to combine them with our curriculum, our students can also take their families back to these experiences and places. It's huge. And also tonight, you'll notice on your consent agenda that you will see many of the items that we're asking you to approve, and we hope that you do so that we can move forward with this planning.
Thank you, Dr. Breeden. We do have some questions. First up will be Board Member Ragland, then Cole. And then Dr. Pierce, is your hand up? Okay, then Dr. Pierce.
Thank you, Dr. Breeden, and the rest of your team for this report. I am just thoroughly pleased with everything that I have seen today. Just excited that you are getting a jump on summer programming and that it is has such a positive impact for our students, and looking forward to the outcomes. Can you talk about our communications strategy in order to get this information out to as many students as possible? And then my last question is, what can the board do to help assist you in, not just with passing the legislation tonight? I'm absolutely certain that my colleagues will be in favor of it, but what can we do to either spread the word about this terrific programming or help you bring even more resources to bear for the purpose of this opportunity for our students? Thank you again.
I think Ms. Clark would be the best person to answer those questions.
Okay, and I saw Scott Wortman open his mirror. So I'll tell him we're working with our communications department. So I'll let him talk about that, and then I can talk about what you can do to assist.
Thanks, Ms. Clark. So absolutely, Mr. Ragland, we are planning a coordinated and strategic effort to get this out, because this is certainly something we want everyone to know about. And we would love board members to participate in that. We can put together toolkits that you can use on your own social media channels and in your conversations in the community as well. But we'll use our own media channels, website. We'll have a ccssummer.org website where all the information will be there. Strategically put in our social media channels, and then use some paid media as well on radio and digital.
So when we think about assistance, I think one of the things, COVID always has this filter on everything that we try to do. So we're trying to be really strategic about making sure that we have the teaching staff in place to be able to do this. We have a lot of teachers who are very excited about this type of programming and the opportunities that it affords. And so one of the messages, we're definitely open partners to sit at the table and collaborate and figure out how to do this. But this is not, I always say, this is not your grandmother's, it's not even your mother's summer school. So it's not, so that needs to be a real clear understanding, and that our commitment is to make sure that when teachers come, not only do we appreciate the time, the extended time you're going to spend beyond the school year, but that you're going to leave, we're being really intentional about them leaving with tools that they can use in their classrooms. So our goal is to transform learning, period. Some of the things that were mentioned here, we know we can't do things the way we've always done them. And so we want people to know that we want you to be invigorated and understand when you come, we have something intentional for our teachers as well. So I guess if we can come to the table to figure out how we embrace our entire community with that understanding, I think that we'll be able to ensure that this happens. And we're being very safe, as I stated, because we have created a 1-to-15 teacher-student ratio, so our kids could come every day, so that we didn't have to worry about cohort A and cohort B, and that we could provide that, and so that they can stay consistent in that cohort. So those things, I guess that's what I would throw out there as a concern.
Thank you. Those are all my questions.
Thank you, Board Member Ragland. Now to Board Member Cole.
Thank you, Madam President. First of all, thank you, administration, for this wonderful presentation of a great number of assorted enrichment opportunities for young people during the summer. This is really good. Let's go to outcomes and effectiveness. What is the intended efficacy of this piece over the summer? Who are we impacting, and to what extent? Are these going to be programs that are targeted for, and I'm going to use a term that I heard today, opportunity students. Instead of calling our students at risk, or some of our students at risk, we call them opportunity students. I did not make that up myself. I borrowed that from somebody today. But where is this leveraged to, certain neighborhoods, communities that open this door of opportunity for students that might very well otherwise not have it? So what is the efficacy? What are the things that we're looking at in terms of student outcomes that also contribute to that? My second question then lies towards workforce readiness. The way that I'm seeing a lot of things on the state level, on the employer level, begin to develop or continue to cultivate is around workforce readiness. And I know that micro-credentials are part of that. You've heard me mention this before in the past, in the very recent past. Is this something that we're trying to incorporate, if not into, because you had a boot camp piece in there, if not into the summer enrichment piece, are we thinking about this moving forward in terms of curriculum for our 6 through 12 grade band specifically? I have those two questions, and I have one additional.
Thank you for your questions. I'll speak to the outcome, and then Mr. Lee can talk about workforce readiness and some of those thoughts too. In my past, I was over accountability, and we tried to measure the impact of summer school. The first thing that you can often hope for is the reduction of summer loss of learning. I think about how many of our students have not been engaged as much, that they're already behind. And if we do not have strong summer programming, we just make matters worse. So one of the things that we've done in the past, and thank you for reminding me of this because it's kind of making me go back in my brain, is we did in our learning management system that the student outcome, what it'd be, where we keep track of our students. I don't know what we call it, Infinite Campus. We tagged the students that were in certain programs so that we could look back and say, did they do better in the fall assessment because of this experience? You can't expect world-changing things happening out of a 2-week program, but if you do that extra step, it does help you make some assumptions, or at least to make you think it, or to go back and maybe interview the students and talk to them about what it was. So those are just some initial things. It's summer loss, and also finding a way to mark those students so that you can look at outcomes. Let's say we're talking about 3rd graders. Did they were they on target when they took their fall assessment with their prior spring assessment? That would be a really important thing to look at. All right, Mr. Lee, let's talk about workforce development a little bit.
Good evening, board member Cole. It's great to see you again. One of the things actually with the quarter project that we discussed, in addition to students earning course credit, was that the students could begin working on their graduation seals, which includes workforce readiness. It includes potentially a community service seal, where there could be internships or job shadowing opportunities within those quarter projects. There would also be the opportunity for a technology seal, potentially, and earning those types of workforce readiness credentials that can get students started towards graduation as early as 9th grade. And honestly, with the 6-8 programming, get them started in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, so that when they do become those juniors and seniors, they have strong resumes that will not only help them graduate with a CCS diploma, but it will help them be prepared for life beyond high school. And that's really our key there. You mentioned earlier about having options. One of the things we really focused at 612 is having both virtual and in-person options, so that a student does not have to necessarily make a choice of, I either have to do this or this. They can make the choice that is best for them and their both their mental health as well as their academic learning style. And then I definitely see this as being part long-term of our Columbus City Schools academic programming and ecosystem. When you look at the Quarter project and the project-based approach, whether it's PAST or Quarta, that's the type of pedagogy that is going to engage our students long-term, and we need to build critical mass around that and get teachers trained and have embedded coaching, which we have during the summer, and to keep that momentum, that summer experience momentum, going into the 21-22 school year and beyond.
And if I could just add, this is Leslie Kelly. The other thing that we want to look at that's equally as important, besides looking at the more quantitative outcomes of student growth, but also the growth in our students' confidence in themselves as learners. And that's what these types of experiences do. It gives our students an opportunity to engage differently, and it will also give our students a much needed opportunity to collaborate with each other. So as they gain confidence in themselves as individuals, confidence in their ability to articulate, and then just confidence in themselves as learners throughout this entire process, that also carries over, and that leads to increase in outcomes as well. So those are the other things that we're really looking at when we think about impact.
I also think about the social emotional learning of the students too, getting outside, getting out of your neighborhood, getting back connected in the community.
No, thank you. Thank you for all of that. Thank you for the incorporation of the SDL piece. And I just think I would really like to see us strengthen our efforts on the workforce readiness side to engage families and students in a way that gives them a real sense of what the light is at the end of the tunnel, irrespective of whether they decide to go to school or not. And I know that part of this team is a very clear testament, Mr. Lee, of that type of accomplishment. You produced quite a number of super kids. And Ms. Kelly, I mean, there's a number of you at the table here who have done some awesome work in producing super kids, whether it's on the elementary, middle level, or higher. But I really like to see us encourage this workforce readiness piece in a way that makes sense for students so that they're aware of it and jump on it early and take advantage of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Board Member Cole. Dr. Pierce?
Thank you so much. So first, thank you for this presentation. I was a bit surprised that the presentation did not mention our goals, guardrails, or our equity work. That would be very nice to know going forward how these courses, the curriculum design is also aligning with our goals and guardrails. Again, that is to be our North Star and to direct us as we come up with curriculum and academic changes. When we talk about opportunities for our seniors, again, do we have an anticipated idea of how many seniors we anticipate will enroll this summer, may need to enroll this summer based upon how many have signed their graduation plans and how many are on track?
I'd first like to speak to your idea about the guardrails and the work that we're doing around strategic planning. That isn't in this year. I think it's, we're a little early and our planning started a couple months ago. But as we were talking, I thought, wouldn't it be great in the future if we looked at our portrait of a graduate and we looked at those competencies and really built experiences around those. So I think you and I are kind of thinking in the same direction. We hope to do that next year.
That's actually right here on my list, portrait of grad, right there.
All right, well, great. Kenny, tell us a little bit about what you project seniors will be doing. I know we have some things in place and some other things we'll talk about at another board meeting down the road, probably too.
Good evening, Dr. Pierce. I think when you look at the programming for seniors, again, there are options. The quarter project is not restricted to just 9 or 10. And if there's a senior who wants to be part of that community project learning experience, they're certainly more than welcome to enroll. As stated, there's opportunities for those students who want to get outdoors and get an environmental science credit. And for those students who are out there who want to get ahead and take a AP boot camp or work on their College Credit Plus opportunities during the summer, our community partners are able and willing to step up. I think with the focus on engagement, our hope is that some of those seniors that we have struggled to connect with for various reasons will see some of these options and opportunities and really jump at the chance to potentially engage in that in-person learning or some of these innovative outside the box learning experiences that could really trigger their interest. Again, looking at the quarter project, those are student designed experiences, and Dr. Dixon talked about getting students to co-design alongside teachers. I think that's a really powerful attractor for our students. And, it's Board Member Cole's point about making sure we address the spectrum of students that we have in Columbus City Schools, from opportunity students to, the gifted advanced students who could graduate with enough credits as a junior. We want to engage everybody.
Can I add also, so for seniors, there are some things built in that we did not change. So for example, our current seniors who are on track, there are some wraparound things that are occurring from the curriculum side, whether they need to pursue additional credentialing to ensure their graduation. Those systems are in place and being continually built in this new system. And then also we have students sometimes as seniors, and this is not a new thing, where they are enrolled in credit recovery because they were behind. So students who are already on track, they're going to finish up and they're going to do what they need to do. But students who are in credit recovery in our system, what we do is we allow them to continue. So if for some reason they cannot finish their credit recovery prior to spring graduation, we roll those students over into summer, because we have a summer graduation as well, which still makes them a member of the class of 2021. So we are mindful that students have to finish. And I'll add, you didn't ask this, but I'll add that anybody in the digital academy, because again, that's self-paced, so we have put mechanisms in place so that those students can continue to work until they finish what they need to finish. So grace is the name of the game. And in my years of experience with graduating seniors, it's imperative that we have systems. So we've kept that in place. And then some of those things in the digital academy, we're also very much aware, because our director in the alternative pathway has a background in CTE. So we are also have some digital options for those students and building. So we are very mindful of the seniors. And on well, we kind of partner with our leadership and transformation partners, because they monitor that day-to-day thing, but we have to make sure that the programming is there. So I hope that also helps with that question.
That was excellent, Mrs. Clark. You and Dr. Breeden are singing my song, as Dr. Breeden likes to say. Thank you very much. I appreciate it, because as I think about where a number of our students are, they need that flexibility. They need to know that this plan that was introduced tonight just gives a taste of everything that will be offered this summer. And I hope that as we're out knocking on doors and speaking with our seniors, any of our students in high school for that matter, that we're explaining the flexible options to them and their families, that they can come in the summer and recover any of those credits that they need to recover, or in some instances, work a little bit ahead, get that enrichment, because we know a number of our student athletes will also be working extremely hard this summer to get prepared for their upcoming seasons or to transition into college. So with that in mind, it would also be nice to see an ACT boot camp in there, something that's preparing them for those college entrance exams. We might have some students that defer for a semester or a term and decide to, go into college, maybe that winter semester or that spring semester. So it would be really good if we could offer them the opportunity to improve their scores that way by coming to an ACT boot camp. The next question that I have, I understand the importance of academics, trust me. Academics are important. I get it. But in addition to that, social emotional wellness and balance is extremely important. You can't do well in the classroom if emotionally you're not doing well. If emotionally you're depressed or have anxiety, or you haven't been able to connect with your friends. So while I get excited because we're offering summer program, I want to also challenge us to think about how during the summer we can provide our students with opportunities to both learn, but to also in effective ways deal with some of the social emotional issues that they may have encountered during this school year. And so while we might be taking students out, to go creeking, or while we might be providing students with these opportunities to go to COSI, or we have the extended day options and the flexibility, I would love to see us with real intentionality think about how we can put some adults in each one of these programs where our students can break out into small groups and really talk about what they've dealt with, talk about what they need to do this summer to prepare to move into whatever next year's school year might look like, with a toolkit, with some information, with some resources to help them deal with what they might be experiencing. And I guess that kind of leads to the question of, what are we thinking or planning around addressing the very real social emotional issues that many of our students and their families are experiencing during this time.
As I think about that, we are aware of those and schools are working on those, but I'd really like someone from our social work counseling person to talk more specifically about that. And that would, I feel like that would be more comprehensive of an answer for you, Dr. Pierce.
And Dr. Pierce, I do want to add real quick for you, and I put it in the chat, that each of our sites will have a full-time guidance counselor or social worker assigned to the sites as well.
With that assigning, again, is there any way that we can create those small breakout sessions, again, where we're providing the opportunity for students to sit and talk with someone, you know, not that I have to go down and talk to the counselor, or the counselor, you know, my parent or care guardian has to call the counselor and say, hey, go talk to my child, something might be going on. But that just, we as a district, as Dr. Dixon said earlier, are wrapping our arms around our babies to say, hey, while we have you, let's pull you aside for an hour or two once a week and talk to you about wellness.
Yeah, so we'll follow up with our team and we'll bring that updates to our summer programs back to the board.
Just an idea. Thank you so much for your willingness to think about it, Dr. Dixon. I appreciate it.
Yeah, we just need to include Cheryl Ward in this conversation and have her plan what that will look like. So we'll include her in this conversation and bring it back to the board.
Those are all my questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Pierce. To Board Member Ragland for second question.
Thank you, Madam President. My question is for Mr. Lee. Based on what we've seen with COVID, we know that we have quite a few students who are working out in the field right now on a day-to-day basis. What are we doing to account for that? And are there any things that we're doing to make sure that the work that they're doing out in the greater community is helping lend itself towards their graduation or their workforce seal?
Thank you for the question, Board Member Ragland. The quick answer to your question is yes. We have a lot of students who are in the workforce, by choice, many they have to. They have to do that. And we want to make sure that what they're doing now has a long-term impact. And this is where, hopefully next year we're able to get back to awarding those internship hours for those students who are getting jobs, which would also translate into hours for their community service seals that would lend themselves to graduation. So really it's about, promoting that message that what you're doing now will have an impact down the road, and that there is light at the end of the tunnel. And that was something that Board Member Cole talked about, that we got to see that there is something at the end of this very dark COVID tunnel, and that the work you're doing right now is going to lend itself to long-term success.
Do you have any idea of how many students we have currently that are in that current situation, literally in school with us, but also, working a considerable number of hours in the week?
We can reach out to schools and see if we can get some of that information and get some of those numbers, and also some of the stories too.
No, I was at Beechcroft. I was at Beechcroft the other day, and the principal and I talked about that. So many kids are really having to go to work and support their families. It's a big concern right now.
Yeah, I would just like to see us pay a bit more attention to those students, and especially, where they're working, what they're working, the hours that they're working. what are their grades? Are there some support systems that we can place around them? Just knowing that many of them are, have become breadwinners for their family during COVID. I think that it's important that we use every resource at our disposal to help them come out of this in a positive fashion, like you've mentioned, Mr. Lee. And thank you for the work you all continue to do.
Thank you, Board Member Ragland. I believe that is all the questions. So thank you so much, team, for your presentation. I will tell you, as a parent of a rising sixth grader, I'm super excited to send her away to camp out of the house. And I know that all of our students are, going to have academic and social emotional, and then we're going to get to hand them over to Park and Rec for the rest of the afternoon. So it's going to be a wonderful, wonderful summer for our students and staff, because we have a lot of professional development opportunities and helping us to build our staff of the future as well. So congratulations. Thank you all. It looks fun. I wish I could do it. All right, Dr. Dixon, anything else from you today?
No, just thank you for your input. We would take all this under consideration. And as I stated to Dr. Pierce, I will update the board on any improvement and changes we've made to our summer program. So again, thank you to the team. And that ends my superintendent's report.
Thank you so much. We will now move to item 6, and that is our internal auditor's report. Hello, Internal Auditor Smith. Do you have a report this evening?
Thank you, President Adair. I do not have a formal report, but I would just like to say that Audit and Accountability will be meeting next Thursday. It's going to be a kind of a combination of Zoom and hybrid. And if our listening audience wants to tune in, you can do so through, I'm assuming, Facebook and YouTube. That's all I have this evening.
Thank you so much. Moving on to item 7, we have our report from our treasurer. Hello, Mr. Treasurer.
Good evening.
How are you?
I'm okay. I survived a rather major computer glitch. Had to leave and come back, but I'm doing fine, and I do have a financial report for you this evening. Okay, it's been a while, taken a while to get through the agenda, so we're still on the January report. I thought perhaps for me, I might have to move on to February's, but this is the January report, which was presented to the Finance and Appropriations Committee last Wednesday. For revenues year to date, that variance above plan is down a bit to 25 million above plan, or 4.3%. Last month, it was around 28.8 million above plan, or 6.2%. So that's come down a bit because we were under plan this month. Expenditures, that year-to-date variance has climbed to about 56 million, or 9.7% under plan. And that last month was around 48 million under plan, or 9.6%. So the percentage stayed pretty much the same, but the dollar amount increased some. Cash balance increased to 81 million above plan from about 77 million above plan last month. I'd like to track the cash balance for the committee and the board. As you can see, after the first quarter, where it behaved a little bit differently than prior years due to the delay in property tax collections, we're back on track to mirroring the cash flow behavior of prior years. But as you can see, we are running above plan. Highlights for revenue. Property tax advances for the first half collection of collection year 21 began in the month of January, and they were very much on plan for the month, as compared to what we were projecting. So they're on target. State funding this month, it was under plan about $1.2 million for the month, which dropped that year-to-date over plan variance to about 17 million. As you might recall, Last month, we received a $19.5 million one-time dividend from the Bureau of Workers' Compensation, which appears in this state funding line and caused a bit of a bump in that flow. Other revenues, another revenue item that was under plan for the month by about 1.8 million. So that, although still above plan, other revenues are running 4.3 million above plan. Again, pilots and investment income are big contributors to both the dollar amount and the variances in that category. I share with the committee, just looking at how our state aid is flowing, you can see that bump representing the Bureau of Workers' Compensation dividend back in December. But you can see that in January, we're back much closer to that equal monthly flow plan and reasonably well on target with our current plan, which is based upon historical behavior, but we're back onto that equal monthly flow plan. I pull the dividend out, and you can see that the revenue has flowed fairly steadily this year. The year-to-date variance, including that dividend payment, we're about 21 million above the equal monthly flow plan and about 17 million above the plan that is based upon history. Take that out, and you can see that we're pretty much plus or minus about 2 million against either plan. So still, in this particular case, without that dividend, we're very close to plan in terms of state revenue. One of the items you may have heard about in the news is that the governor has reduced the reduction, if that's not a redundant statement, but they've reduced our reduction. As you might recall, in fiscal year 20, as a result of the pandemic and its impact on state revenues, they cut our funding late in fiscal year 20. It was about, as you can see here, 9.2 million. That reduction carried forward into FY21, the current fiscal year. And just a couple of weeks ago, the governor announced that there would be a revision to that reduction down to 4.1 million, which means that the adjustment to us is about 5 million to the good in terms of state aid that will come to the district. As you should recall, community schools participated in that reduction back in fiscal year 20. So there was a reduction in payments to them, which meant a reduction in deductions to us. And that was about $2 million. So that 9.1 was really around $7 million net to us back in fiscal year 20. So when this restoration goes through, where we receive about $5 million, the community schools will also see a per pupil restoration. That's $48.68 per pupil. And using the number of community school pupils that was listed in our January number 2 state aid payment of 21,122.11 students, I'm going to estimate that we should see an increase in our deduction of just over $1 million, which means on a net basis, in terms of the impact on our cash balance, we should see a favorable $4 million impact by the end of the fiscal year. First payment in February will reflect our revenue increase. The second payment in February will reflect the increase in the community school deduction. Reminder of our variance heat map that I like to share each month. You can see how what's unfavorable to revenues is favorable to expenditures in terms of being below plan. And you can see that they range from very favorable to very unfavorable in the dollar amount and percentages there. Looking at the heat map for revenues, I can tell you that compared to last month, we have many more on-plan indicators this month than last, and there's been a drop in the number of very unfavorable heat indicators this month versus last month. But it looks very good. Very many of these items are on plan and quite a few green favorable indicators. Moving on to expenditures year to date, personnel ran in January about $4.5 million under plan, which took that personnel number down to 25 million under plan. And you can see the breakdown there between salaries and wages and benefits, making up the 25.2 million. That 25.2 million is about 7% under plan. If that would continue to the end of the year. 7% of our annual estimate would be about a $44.5 million favorable variance. The first 3 months of the fiscal year, our year-to-date variance was running somewhere between 11 and 17% under. And then the last 4 months, we've been in the 6 to 7% range. I think with us ramping back up operations, students coming back to school, some of the wage payments picking up, I don't believe we'll hit that 7% under, but we will obviously monitor that and see the impact of the return to hybrid here in the month of February. Purchase services under plan this past month, about 1.8 million, which drove that year-to-date under plan variance to 17.2 million. Same contributors as the previous month. Professional technical services, property services, electricity, internet access, and tuition to other districts. Those are the top year-to-date variances, and they each range between 2 to 2.7 million under plan each. Charter schools, that deduction ran about 375,000 under plan for the month. It now stands at 5.4 million under plan. Of course, we'll see a change in that variance as that deduction increases, as the payments to charter schools is restored by the governor. The supplies and materials, another line item that ran under for the month, now 3.8 million under plan. Looking at the heat map for expenditures, pretty much green across the board, and this really hasn't changed much from the prior month of December. I shared once again with the committee, because the end of fiscal year 20 and so far all of fiscal year 21 have been a very odd year for the expenditure flows. I wanted to compare where we are this year to date compared to where we were last year to date. The impact of the pandemic we really didn't begin to see until the month of March. So the first 7 to 8 months of fiscal year 20 were relatively normal, whereas the first 7 to 8 months for fiscal year 21 are running under that the impact of the pandemic. You can see here on the revenue side that it hasn't really had much of an impact. State aid, 12.2 above where we were last year, but remember that includes the 19.2 Bureau of Workers' Comp dividend, and therefore we would actually be running behind last year, which makes sense because of that reduction in our state aid that didn't exist in the first 8 months of last year, but does exist in the first 8 months of this year. All in all, we're about on revenues about 3.1% above where we were last year. Looking at expenditures, you can see the personnel is running behind where we were last year. Again, primarily substitute and overtime costs are driving that. Purchase services is running behind last year. Charters running ahead of where we were, and you can see the other line items that look pretty reasonable compared to last year. Total expenditures on operating expenditures only up 0.8%. And when we add in all the other financing sources, we're running about 1.1% or 5.4 million above where we were this time last year. I dive a little bit deeper in breakout salary, the personnel item into salaries and wages and fringe benefits. You see that fringe benefits are pretty much unchanged from this time last year, and salaries and wages are the major contributor to that 1.3% under last year number that we're experiencing thus far. So in closing, revenues are running above plan, expenditures are running below plan as we've seen in the past. We are building a cash balance, which is good. The Finance Committee will be working on, I'll begin working on the 5-year forecast. That'll be the focus of some of our upcoming discussions. And it will certainly serve as the basis when the committees were announced at the beginning of the year. I believe President Adair, you outlined an item that this committee should consider, and that was looking at the ballot for 2022 in terms of what we might need in operating millage and or permanent improvement. So we'll be using the 5-year forecast as a basis for part of that. Those discussions will begin this year in the Finance Committee. Trying to remember what else. I didn't pull up the agenda. Board member and FAC Chair Cole, I trying to remember what else we discussed at the meeting. I believe we heard some appropriation resolution items that are on the agenda later. But it was a fairly efficient meeting last Wednesday. So that concludes my report. If you have any questions, be glad to do my best to answer them this evening.
Thank you. Committee leaders, do you have anything to say, or are there questions from the board?
Provided there are no questions, thank you, Mr. Treasurer, for, again, a very thorough analysis and presentation. I also want to just kind of piggyback again off of what you mentioned, specifically in terms of moving forward with, plans around capital budget and our general fund, and leveraging bond or levy issues to support those. I thought that, and I think the committee is in agreement, that there was a very good and robust conversation that was held by the previous millage committee. And that's the rationale for wanting to move forward with, co-information coming not only from the administration and the Treasury, but also from our FMP process as well, to give us a deep dive look at what our capital improvement needs will be or will not be. So thank you for that. Thank you again for explaining too, and maybe you can go just into slight detail on that, but the CARES Act dollars that we're looking at coming down the pike soon, that we can also take full advantage of. So there was, yes, a robust conversation, and as always, a good analysis. Thank you.
Yes, that was the other item I could remember. I don't know why, but it was because it wasn't my responsibility to present it. Dr. Mosier, Catherine Mosier, presented a very thorough overview. I guess you can be thorough in an overview, but she gave the committee an overview of the various sources of federal dollars that we received that are pandemic related, the spending deadlines for those, some examples of what we spent the dollars on. And there is, I believe we're referring to them as ESSER 2 monies coming here in the near future. And that application is going to open up, I believe, later this month. And her team is going to, is already involved in planning for those expenditures with the administration. And then she'll take care of making sure that application is filed. I just recently signed off on a reimbursement with FEMA for some general fund expenditures that were incurred. So not only are we receiving federal dollars that supplement what we're doing and take care of some of the expenditures we have for COVID-related items such as masks and sanitizer and plexiglass and signage and things like that, we've been able to use these FEMA dollars to reimburse the district for other general fund expenditures that have been related to the pandemic that weren't covered in federal dollars. They were pretty specific about you're not allowed to pay for it out of federal dollars. They don't want you double dipping on that. So, so we've had that as a source of reimbursement as well. So, all in all, her team is actively engaged in keeping track of that. And making sure all the documentation is in place, because I know that it will be a focus in future audits for how those dollars were spent, and they're doing a good job of keeping track of that.
Member Brown, do you have a question?
Not a question. I just want to also commend Stan for his work, the presentation both at the committee last week and tonight. And I was especially impressed and said at the committee with the CARES Act money and the presentation on that. It was very helpful, and it lets me know that we're in good shape with respect to getting the federal dollars that we need and putting them to good use. So thank you.
Well, and she's not here this evening, so if she's listening in, the kudos should go to her. And this is an interesting time, as some of you, all of you should be aware. So recent, within the last 4 months or so, recent reorganization that Dr. Dixon wanted to have take place, and we had the budget office, Scott Gooding, and some of the staff come over to my side of the shop, if you will. But the grants management piece was separated out, and Catherine Mosier took over that responsibility. And so there's a management piece that has to do with planning the expenditures and implementing the plans that are put in place. So they do the planning and the implementation, and we're on the budget side, making sure that everything is accounted for in the right, pew of the church, so to speak, and that things get reported out. So now we're kind of working across the aisle, if you will, collectively to get that done. So all of these federal dollars came rolling in. All of this grant money came rolling in at a time that we were, getting used to that new working relationship. And I think it's worked well. And some of the evidence of that was the report that the committee received last week. So, Catherine and I have been emailing while I was off screen. We've got some other things going on, so we were emailing yet tonight. So,
Thank you. All right. We are going to move on to our consent agenda. This evening, the consent agenda is items 10.1 to 23.8. Any member may request an item to be removed from the consent agenda. Is there any items this evening anyone would like to remove for separate vote? Okay, seeing none.
I move approval of the consent agenda.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Are there any items that you wish to discuss on the consent agenda this evening? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Cole?
Yes.
Dr. Pierce?
Yes, not abstaining from anything. Thank you.
Mr. Ragland?
Yes.
Vice President Reyes?
Yes.
President Adair?
Yes.
Ms. Beckerly?
Yes.
That motion carried.
Thank you. We will now move into item 24, which is board announcements. Any announcements this evening? Board Member Brown?
Very brief.
Oh, he froze. Maybe he'll come back. Anyone else have an announcement?
Can you guys?
Yes, there's a very unique opportunity, Madam President, in a partnership with a local organization, actually that has national presence. The National Center for Urban Solutions is in partnership with Central State University in a very unique relationship that opens the door of opportunities for professionals, novices, students, teachers to learn how to code in Apple Swift. Swift is a app coding platform that is very simple to use and something that I believe, I'm hoping that our students will grow to participate in moving down the line. This event takes place on this Thursday, the 18th at 6 p.m. Those who are interested in registering can go to csuNCUSTEC.eventbrite.com. Again, that is csuNCUSTEC.eventbrite.com. You can go there and actually at 6 o'clock learn exactly, how to code on Swift and make your own platform. So those of us who have your Apple devices, be sure to make those things available. And again, for those on the attendance side for school who are not sure about how to make sure your student on synchronous days outside of class, please go to the parent and student portal to make sure that your student is registering through that portal to be online and then accounted for via their attendance in the classroom. If you have questions, you can always call central office and someone from there can be happy if you be as gracious as to share that number. That would be awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. Other announcements? Dr. Pierce?
So I just want to give a big congratulations. Can you guys hear me good? To all of our students that participated in city championships over the weekend. I had the great opportunity to go see some basketball games, some wrestling matches. I got an opportunity to talk to our families. It was so absolutely awesome. Whether you won or not, everybody is a winner. You worked so hard to get a season and make a season happen. I am extremely proud of all of you. Continue to keep up the great work in the classrooms and on the court. And then I also like to thank NBC4 for their highlight for Black History Month. Although I still think of myself as a pretty young person with a lot to do, know that it's an honor to represent our district, to represent the greatness that is produced every day in our community, and that every day I wake up excited and looking for new ways to advance the greatness that our district is doing. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you. Other announcements? Really quick for the FMP process, Dr. Dixon talked about, we want to make sure students are involved and really part of, creating, not just curriculum, but what do buildings feel like and look like for the future. And so every region is going to have students who will become student leaders in those regions and work with the co-chairs and be part of that process. And you're going to earn internship hours and really, dig in. So if you are someone who is interested in, maybe even thinking about planning or engineering or, city development, this could be a career path for you. How does a big organization work through problems like this? So, come join us. It's for high school students who will be currently 9th through 11th grade. So seniors, we want you to be involved. You can come to the community meetings, but because it spans 2 years, you're going to make commitment for like 11th and 12th grade. So that's why 12th graders are not able to apply, but we want you to be involved when we have those community conversations because your voice is powerful as well. So go to the website, apply to become a student lead in the regions and rep your regions, making sure that you are getting everything that you deserve in a building for the future so that we all can make that portrait of a graduate a reality. So go to the website and apply today. Okay. I think that's all. I don't see anyone else waving at me. All right, so we are going to go into executive session. Vice President Reyes, you have a motion?
Yes, ma'am. I move that the Board of Education recess into executive session per section 121.22 G1 of the Ohio Revised Code to consider the appointment, employment, or compensation of a public employees.
Your second? Is there a second?
Second.
I second.
Thank you. Please call the roll.
Mr. Cole.
Yes.
Dr. Pierce.
Yes.
Mr. Ragland.
Yes.
Vice President Reyes.
Yes.
President Adair.
Yes.
Ms. Beckerly.
Yes.
Mr. Brown.
Yes.
That motion carried.
Thank you. So we will go into executive session. Most of you we will not be seeing anymore. So have a great rest of your evening. And for the listening public, as always, we will come back to this session to officially close the meeting out. So thank you all so much. And we will go ahead and move into executive session. And I'm sure that Board Member Brown will need a short break.